Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 6 of the Reptile Rejects podcast. Today, we got Steven Kush from Kush's Corner. And what is your business name?
I go by Kush Reptile as my business name, but I really try to just kind of brand myself based on my own name solely as much as I can. Just everyone's something, this reptiles, this, that exotics get all lost in the shuffle. So, to me, it's like if I can brand myself first and foremost, then people will just know me for what I
Just
have.
Kush, man. There's no other Kush out there. It's just such a
That is
good last
definitely
name.
true. Yeah.
Just
That's why I was
Kush.
like, man, should I think of something creative or should I just stick with what I was blessed to have this incredible marketing built into my name. So hey, you know what? I couldn't avoid it.
Yeah, for sure. I think some people just like create a name like Craig Trumbauer and even guys like Don Soderberg, and that they could probably just go off their name. You just hear
Oh,
that name and you
100%.
think of
Yeah,
what they keep and whatnot. Like you almost don't even need a
absolutely.
business name.
Yeah,
It
I feel
almost,
like the business names were a bigger thing like 15 years ago. Everyone knew BHB Reptiles and Constrictors Unlimited and Reptiles by Mac and but but now with how many people are doing this, they all blend together to me at least. So
You could have been blessed with a last name that Carbonneau like me. It just flows off the tongue. Everybody can say it. It's just beautiful. And
yeah, exactly.
or be original like me and go with Dom's Reptiles. Like it's so original, never been done before. So
Yeah,
either
yeah.
way, Steve, really happy to have you on. Thank you for taking the
yeah,
time and coming to
for sure.
chat with us. Really, really
Absolutely.
happy to talk scrub pythons, a little bit of pits, and other couple of subjects that Mike will probably bring on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's do it.
for sure. There's an endless amount of topics we could hit, for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, do you want to do like a quick summary, even though everybody's probably heard like your story and like how you've got here, but did you want to do
Yeah.
like a just like a quick synopsis on how you've reached to
Yeah.
the point where you are now?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, reptiles have been a part of my life since before I can remember. Like a lot of kids in my generation, I grew up watching Steve Irwin, and was very fortunate to grow up in Chicago around one of the more vibrant reptile scenes in the country. Within literally walking distance, growing up from where the CHS had their meetings. And my pediatrician actually was a high up member at the Chicago Herp Society and was one of the organizers of Reptile Fest, which is I'm not sure if they still do it, but it's essentially take like a regular reptile show, the same format, pretty big, and then no sales at all, purely educational. Same kind of booth setups, but everyone's handing you snakes and iguanas and all, petting tortoises and stuff. So I, ran around there as a kid, really built up my fascination. And then by the time I was about 8 or 9 years old, I really, wanted to start keeping pet snakes. Like we had guinea pigs forever and started breeding those, and that was a lot of fun. But I always wanted to get reptiles, and was kind of, beating my parents down until they finally let it happen. My mom in particular, she was always very paranoid about the whole salmonella thing, which now we know unless you're like a baby who puts a turtle in its mouth that's been sitting in shit water for a week and a half, probably not going to get salmonella from a reptile. Um, but in preparation for that, I did a lot of research, and at the time, that's when YouTube was really starting to become a thing within the reptile community. So finding lots of different channels, but primarily Brian Barczyk, snake bites at the time, and realizing that there is a whole industry around around this thing that I'm so fascinated by. And at that point, I'm like, this is what I want my life to be. I want this to be my career, and that's kind of been my central theme in my life since then. I was very fortunate then, right at the beginning of high school and throughout high school, to have worked at the Wildlife Discovery Center, which is a small zoo outside of Chicago, which had a bunch of different species. I mean, hundreds of species throughout the time I was there, from tons of different snakes, boas, pythons, colubrids, a decent sized venomous collection, which early on had a lot of exotics, king cobras, bushmasters, mangshan vipers, etc. Um, and then monitor lizards, crocodilians, amphibian species, really almost anything you could think of. Birds of prey. They had a bobcat that him and I became good friends. That was a lot of fun. Probably my favorite animal that I actually interacted with there. And then sometime in like the middle of high school, sophomore, junior year, I met Forrest Fanning, and he kind of took me under his wing, became a mentor of mine for a while. Went to college very briefly. I didn't want to go because I wanted to pursue my career, but I didn't really have like an in yet. And then through my relationship with Forrest, I ended up starting, to work for him. Ended up running his rodent company, and unfortunately, obviously, he passed away in 2020. But I ran that company for about 5 years, and now for the last year and a half or so, closing in on, oh my gosh, it's been over 2 years now. Wow, time flies. But now I'm just full time snake breeder. So, and that's where we are now. And I've been doing a podcast now for the last year and a half or so.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I do you find that having the podcast almost helps you with sales and whatnot, or not really?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think like these days, if you are, especially if you have aspirations of being full time within this industry, and you're not at least on every major social media platform, but also regularly doing podcasts, whether as a host or a guest, I think you have no chance, no chance unless you're like a legacy breeder, like, like Bob Clark or someone like that has been around for decades, or, I think it's a necessary aspect of what we do these days. I love it
Have
as
you?
well. I'm not doing it just out of obligation. I do love doing it, but
Oh
I
yeah.
think there's multiple aspects to it for sure.
Have you
Um, Sorry, Mike, I'll
noticed?
just cut you off for a second. I'm
Yeah,
just going to log off and log back on because my mic is on the computer and not on my mic, and I want our sound to be better. So just keep going, man. I'll be right back.
no worries. Yeah, have you found any? Have you been ever looking for any species recently since you started the podcast, or since you've started keeping certain species that have like almost had the NPR effect, where oh no, now white lips have jumped up in price and none of them are available, kind of like that?
Um, as far as like, you mean like an impact from the shows that I've done?
Yeah, or just stuff that you keep that you might be looking for. Although it seems like your collection's kind of closed now, but
Yeah, honestly, like I was going through that phase maybe between like when I was like 16 to 22 or so. Um, NPR was a huge influence on me. I mean, they those two got me through high school, so I owe a lot to them. Um, yeah, I mean, species I still have now, the Vietnamese blue beauty snakes. Just hearing Owen rant and rave about them week after week is why I got them. He thoroughly convinced me that that was a species that I needed. So that, along with getting to travel to lots of different collections and zoos and whatnot, and being able to experience a lot of different species, it gave me the opportunity to really find what I enjoyed the most. But then also obviously like would inspire me to want to dive into this project and that project. I mean, not to, this isn't probably exaggerating, but by now I've probably, through everything I've done, worked with, I'd have to imagine over 500 species of reptiles. Um, and it's amazing. Like I'm completely blessed to have had the life that I've had so far, but I've really landed on my few that are like, these are my favorites. And now, recently, and especially over the last 2 years, my focus has been more on streamlining the collection, really focusing on what I love, and honestly, like as a business, becoming more profitable. As anybody who has a really diverse collection knows, the more shit you have, the less you produce, and there's no way around it. And frankly, for a lot of people, that's their goal, isn't to produce a lot of stuff and make a lot of money. And I fully am supportive of anyone who is doing that. I've had that experience. I've had a collection with over 100 species at a given moment, and while it's fun, it comes along with a lot of stress, and not a lot of success if you are quantifying success by percentage of your stock that is producing for you successfully. So particularly with the scrub pythons, but then also with the Spilotes, and then kind of the tertiary level being the Pituophis and some of the rattlesnakes. Like I'm really focused on, I want to perfect what I'm doing or get as close as I can with these species. And then, who knows, maybe in 15 years, I'm going to start, or 10 years, start venturing back out into other things I used to keep or whatever. Like I could see myself getting back into crocodilians at some point, especially if I have property to do it on. But for now, no lizards in my collection, and I am very content. So
Yeah.
I can leave and just take care of all the snakes, not feed them that week, and not really worry about them. So,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I find it even like I have like one Nephris, and even that is like just messes up your routine because you're just used
hmm
to going through the snakes. I can go through the room in 5 minutes if I have to. Everybody's
yeah.
good. Okay, done. But like that
hmm
lizard just like messes it up
Well,
almost.
It does, yeah. And then even though it's not a lot, it's just like that change of routine, that change of focus, for me at least, that can throw me off big time. So to have, have a room where everything's being taken care of the same way, that kind of eases my mind, lets me really get dialed in with it. But if I'm lizard here, snake here, amphibians here, I've done that and it's very overwhelming. So for me
Yeah,
at
for
least.
sure.
having 200 snakes is easier to take care of than probably 30 or 40 lizards. Like, in my opinion, the snakes are like the lazy man's reptiles. Like, you can have so many, and
Absolutely.
you leave for a week, you can just adjust and you're perfectly fine, right? Or even a week and a half, you probably could get away with it. I don't know if I'd do it, but you probably could get away with it pretty easily. Do you
Sure.
have a day job, just
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
curiosity, or are snakes your thing every day?
Yeah, as of right now, it's just purely
Yeah.
snakes. I'm not sure if it's going to be that way forever. Probably not. But yeah, it's been nice, kind of just it was my goal was to be a full time snake breeder from when I was a kid. So I at least like not to just say that I did it, but it's cool to have that experience, know what that's like, and now I can going forward make a decision again to change course, add something new, whatever it may be. All I know is that I love being involved in the industry, and however that looks, I'm very
So
happy with it.
since the change where it became your let's say a snake breeder as your day job, have you found that it changes a
Mm.
bit how you take care of your animals or how you do your pairings? Because I've always wondered if I'd be like, no, you guys have to produce, or no, I have to put these pairs because I need the numbers. Is there any of that going on,
Yeah.
or
I mean, I would just say there's more pressure on it now. Um, and it's not an easy it's not an easy profession mentally, because you could have a week where you make like as much money as you'd make in 4 months at your job, and then not sell a snake for 3 months, and there's no real predicting on when that will or will not happen. So like just getting the mindset of extra money is not extra money. Extra money is your cushion for when things hit zero for a while. um, at least like for me, I know that I couldn't support a family doing what I'm doing currently. Um, I couldn't save for retirement. Like it's not super sustainable long term, especially with this current state of the market. And who knows if and when that'll kind of turn back around. But it works. It's fine. I'm comfortable. I have a house that I love, and I'm able to live a good life. It just as a lot of us know, breeding reptiles exclusively is not a very scalable business model unless you're like working on pet store type of stuff. If you're doing, ball pythons or crested leopard geckos or, whatnot. And even then, a lot of those markets are really flooded, and the wholesale market on them is not what it used to be. So,
Yeah, it's almost more of like a job when you have because you're doing you have to
yeah,
make so much more to make so much
right.
less or to make that number you want to hit. You gotta
Yeah.
put
If
in
I
so
was,
much
if I
extra
was
time and
like,
employees.
if I was going to do more industrial sized business within the reptile industry, it would 1,000% be feeders over a particular pet, like a reptile species for pets. That's the business model that works if you set it up right.
is
So
that because you're guaranteed people always need them no matter what the market is? Pretty much.
right, it's the recession proof aspect of what we do. People can't stop feeding their animals. I'd hope not. At least I really hope if you're not buying new animals, you're still feeding the ones you have. But yeah, that's the issue with selling a luxury good is people can just say no, and they might really want that animal you have, but if money is tight or if you're worried about what's coming, you're just like, yeah, no, not for me. Like I experienced that last fall. I felt like there was a lot of concern in the market surrounding the election, and things that just I feel like people were just kind of waiting to see one way or another, for whatever their views were. And I had like a long wait list for scrub python babies that I had been accumulating throughout the year. I didn't really have much available, and one by one, for like dozens of people, no, 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 and I'm just like, what's happening? like from this entire list that I had accumulated over the year, I think 2 people bought something from me, which very fortunate for those couple of people. But like, that's not a good feeling when you like the bills are coming up, my credit card's due. Like that's it's a scary feeling. So it's a roller coaster, but it still is what I love, and I want to prioritize that first. And if that means cutting out a project here to have more time to focus on breeding these animals or whatever it may be, then you kind of have to just adjust as you go. But as soon as it's not going to happen. I've experienced like the total burnout before, and I've bounced back. I know that's never going to happen to me, but like as soon as I felt that fully happen, I'm like, all right, let's go get a regular job. Like the animals need better than someone who's like focused on the money first. So
Yeah, I feel what you mean by lists. Every time I keep lists, it's always the same thing. I'll have, let's say, 14 names for that type of animal. I expect about 10% actually takes them. So, and it tends to be like
sure.
that. So moving forward, the 2 questions I got for you is, do you mind explaining your house, like how you work your rooms? Are you in a full house? Are you in a townhouse? Are you in an apartment building? What kind of your setup, your rooms? Because I think you've got a couple of different rooms, maybe like that aspect of it. And I got to ask, how old
Yeah.
are you?
I just turned 25,
All right.
so 25 years old. Um, yeah, it's single family home. You know, about 2,000 square feet, and it is the reptile house.
That's pretty big.
There, yeah, and it's full because my girlfriend lives with me and she has a collection as well. Not nearly as large as mine, but she has some bigger lizards and stuff like that have big cages. So they're the master bedroom or master bathroom and the kitchen are the only 2 places in the house without animals, and the staircase. That's it. So they're everywhere. The garage is where I have my adult scrub pythons, or most of my adult scrub pythons. This room I'm in right here is kind of like the other breeding room slash podcast room, but it's where I have like some smaller adult scrub pythons, adult colubrids, and some raised up stuff. I have a room with younger animals, babies, yearlings, etc., that stays essentially like a constant 78 to 82 year round. No supplemental heat on any animals in that room. Um, and then I have the 2 spare bedrooms up here, my venomous rooms that are like the montane climate, so keep them cooler in the winter. That's they get brumated. I put my colubrids in there for brumation. That gets like low 50s. And quarantine in the bedroom, Spilotes in the kitchen, in the dining room. Like, the animals are absolutely everywhere. Quail in the backyard. So, it's
Is there a
there's no escaping it ever, but I don't really mind
is
it
there a
personally.
basement to your houses? I know a lot of the houses in the States don't have basements. So do you have a third floor or just 2 floors?
Yeah, no, it's just, uh, yeah, just 2 floors, no basement. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a house in Texas with a
That's so
basement.
weird because every house here
So,
have basements. Like us, everything has a basement. There's no such thing as a house without a
yeah.
basement. That's the weird thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, same thing growing up in Chicago. Everyone had a basement, and yeah, I that would be great. Again, one day to have a basement. That would be a very ideal setup. So a basement or a 3-car garage. 3-car garage is an elite setup. That's a hell of a space. So, but yeah, so it's a lot, but it works. And considering the climate, how it's pretty warm here anyway, it's not hard for the rooms to stay warm. Um, you know, most of the time, even in the winter, ambience in the rooms during the day are getting close to 80. Coldest times maybe 78, 77. But yeah, heating's never the problem. It's just like AC is on all summer. But even then, set it a little bit higher so that the rooms are still warm. So we're used to reptile room temperature, so that's not really doesn't really bother me to have an 80-degree house.
You want to start, Mike, with the first subject, or yeah?
Yeah, sure. Well, to continue with
Okay,
that, yeah, I think my reptile room actually ends up running at that same temperature this time of year, that like 80 degrees. Even though
Yeah,
living in Vancouver here, it's like outside, it's not actually getting that warm. Like you get
yeah,
those, I want to say like you get a few 80 to 90 degree days, but like most of the time it's 70s probably in the summer, and then
Mm.
dropping down into the low 60s, 50s at night. Obviously, the house stays warmer. But
Yeah.
yeah, I find that my reptile room that right now is the only time it's staying at that temperature. So like I almost have to fight the cold. Not necessarily that it's a bad thing, but I have to run a heater to keep it mid
Oh
70s
yeah.
in the
100%.
fall and the spring, just to keep it at that with the
Yeah.
pits I have, right? Because like at least the pits are kind of fine at that. But
I've
yeah,
always found that rooms in the basement are always easier. Like us, I'm even warmer than Michael. Like our outside for the past month, it's been around 30 degrees Celsius. So I think that's around 100, maybe, maybe not. I think.
no, 30 is like
Okay,
85.
well, whatever. Okay, so it's around there. So which is pretty damn hot. But in the basement, I'm still running a heater. Like because the basement everything stays colder. So if I want to keep my room heat at, I think I'm 79 days, 77 night, and my heater still goes off every now and then, even if it's 100 outside, pretty much for the entire summer. So, but I love basements for that because everything's colder. It's easier to heat up than to cool down, right? So,
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. No, I definitely would love a basement in my future.
Yeah, I want a basement too. I don't have a basement here, and my reptile
Mm.
room's like in an office on the main floor, and then I got the couple snakes in my bedroom upstairs. So those guys stay nice and warm on those hot days.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Alrighty. So I think our first topic we should probably hit the one that you're most known for is the scrub pythons.
Yep.
I think we definitely want to hit maybe start off with kind of what projects you're working with and how you kind of got into them and like what sparked you to keep scrub pythons in the first place.
Sure. So I currently have every species and locality available in the pet trade outside of Indonesia, and even probably the ones that are in captivity over there as well. The barneck scrub pythons are the primary project for me, but they're all priorities. But I probably have around 40 barnecks, give or take. And then the second largest group are the halmaheras, which are high teens or so. Um, but I got them all. I've always been a Python guy through and through. As a lot of us did, ball pythons were the first thing that really grasped my attention. Um, but like at my old job when I was in high school, the first time I ever walked in, I walked into one of the exhibit halls, looked to my right, and a big old olive python shot from the back of the enclosure all the way to the front. And I knew what that was at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, an olive python, like, and a big one at that. That's incredible. So the ball python hyper focus, it never really was there, but like very quickly I'm like, all right, there's so much more to explore than just these ball pythons. And I kept the ball pythons around for a long time, and I still have a few pets now. But from carpet pythons, white lips, Timors, Papuan pythons, green trees, I kind of did a little bit of everything. And what was actually, I like telling the story because I think it's good for a lot of new people to hear. What really got me fascinated in scrub pythons was passing up on buying one. So I knew what scrub pythons were. Like I heard some of like the NPR episodes about scrub pythons. I never interacted with one, but the the lore behind them was that they're these like heat-seeking missile, aggressive, evil snakes. Essentially, like they're venomous. You need to be so careful with them. And whether that was me being just a python guy, or maybe a teenager seeking some thrills, that kind of like got my attention. I'm like, well, what's going on here? Not because I wanted to deal with a snake like that, but it's like, is that really true? Or would that be something that could be kind of debunked and worked around? So it was at the end of a Tinley Park. I think it was fall of 2016. And a friend of mine, David Newman, who's a conjurer guy at the time, boa breeder now, handed me a tub of, hey, hold this for a second, and had a barneck scrub in it. And, he's like holding it for someone else. And I didn't know about like different localities and species and whatnot at the time. And it was absolutely gorgeous. And he's like, you need one of these? I'm like, I spent all my money, so even if I did, I don't think I can right now. And after that show, I was just like sitting in the back of class looking at any article online about scrub pythons that I could. I think the post is still up. It was on like the Reptile Forums UK or like Ball Python something, some UK forum. There was this post that, for the longest time was, I think, probably the best resource for like a visual guide of the different species and localities of scrub pythons, that had them all laid out, the species, the localities, some great example pictures of individuals. And I'm just like, oh wow, there's a ton of different kinds of scrub pythons, and I haven't even seen half of these before. I've always been like a locality fan of, I like species where you can get a bunch of different looks, or species complexes. Maybe kind of going back to being interested in ball python morphs, but one of the first things I was really into were dart frogs. And obviously there's a lot of different species and, color phases within dart frogs. Same thing, green tree pythons as well, be it localities or designer lineages, carpets, etc. So all of these areas of interest that I had kind of had all these aspects to them. When I saw that was the same in scrub pythons, where it's like you could have 20 different individuals and they would all be unique to one another. um, that's something that really drew my attention. Where like with like olive pythons, like I have a pair of olive pythons and I love them. you know Within some very small variability, they all look the exact same. Like if I had 100 olive pythons, you probably need to institutionalize me. Like, something's going very wrong. Not that I don't love my pair of olive pythons, but like for me, that's, or like white lip pythons. Again, there's a different species and localities, but within those species and localities, they all look pretty similar. So the scrub pythons really drew my attention because of that. And then, size wise, a little bit larger than what I had been working with up until that point. I got into pop one pythons after scrub pythons, so I didn't have any species, I guess the olives, that get a little bit larger. But so I was like ready for a challenge. And between October Tinley and then March Tinley 2017, that's when I did all my research, kind of went crazy on learning everything I could about them, following the market, looking at ads and stuff like that. And there was an animal available in like a Tinley Park show group local in Illinois, and somebody had a baby barneck scrub python just in their hand, and he was like, available for the show. And to me, I'm like, shoot, if he was able to get these pictures and there's not blood running down his arm, it's probably a good sign that the animal would at least be a good starting point. So I ended up getting that snake, and pretty much from the moment that I took it out of the deli cup and put it in my hand, I'm like, I found my thing. Like I knew immediately. And just the way that they move, how poised they are, how curious they are. I really like, I like their body structure. I like that they're a larger snake, but they're really slender, so where they're not very heavy. The way that they grab onto you when you're holding them makes them almost kind of weightless, except for really, really large individuals. Once you get like over 10 feet, there are very few 10 plus foot snakes that don't feel heavy, maybe like a blue beauty snake or something like that. But then all of the variability, that's what really got to me. And then seeing like no line breeding has ever been done with these snakes. So for as beautiful as these wild caught animals are, who knows what they're going to look like F2, F3, F4. And then who knows if they'll be just complete puppy dogs by then too. The same thing happened with retics. The first wild caught retics that came in, you hear horror stories about those snakes, probably even worse than scrub pythons. And now they're one of the most popular pet pythons, with a few generations of captive breeding. And another thing, frankly, at the time, that to me was like, this might be a good idea, for the reason that the legality on retics is hanging by a thread, whether we like to admit it or not in the US. I think a lot of times there's confusion about what the Lacey Act listing and then the overruling of the decision actually means. It's not that they're not on the Lacey Act anymore. It's that the entire law got reinterpreted, to where the new ruling found that the law doesn't actually ban interstate commerce. So it's all still there, and frankly would just take an appeal of that ruling, which again probably won't happen because of how strong that ruling was, but it's still hanging by a thread, whether you like it or not. It's been solid for over a decade, so we're probably good. But to me, I was like, why not provide a good alternative to a retic or a berm or a rock python for a larger python species that frankly is more fun to keep than any of those. I'm obviously biased, but I've kept all of those species, and there's a reason why I only have the scrub pythons now and none of those anymore. So I guess that's a very long way of saying I just was instantly completely obsessed with them in every way possible, and now I have over 100 of them. So
It's a good answer. It's definitely a good answer.
yeah.
Um, so there's obviously a lot of species. Do you mind maybe not going to go? Well, actually, I'd go in as much details as you want or not. How many species are there, and is there a lot of morphs in each species? Only a few specific ones.
Sure. So, the Somalia genus, as it currently stands, has 6 species now that Oenpelli pythons, I believe, are no longer Somalia. So now, former honorary Somalia are the Oenpelli pythons. I've never seen one in person, never interacted with one, but their physiology is very Somalia-like. The Bolen's pythons are Somalia, Boleni, obviously. I don't have any Bolen's pythons at the moment. I've never kept any. Um, but they're not very similar to scrub pythons, honestly, in a lot of ways. They look kind of similar, but their body structure is different. Their lifestyle is very different. And but obviously they're one of the most beautiful snakes in the world. I'd love to have Bolen's.
You don't see them as a montane scrub. I mean, I see that as their description
Oh
very
yeah.
often.
I mean, they are, but as far as their behavior goes, and they're like scrub pythons are more kind of vertically structured, and Bolen's are more like horizontally structured. They're kind of wider than they are tall, where scrubs are the opposite. They kind of have shorter, bulkier bulldog heads. They don't really grab you when you're holding them as much as scrub pythons do. Just from some physical and behavioral standpoints, they're pretty different. But I mean, they're more similar to a scrub python than a blood python or a maybe not even a carpet python, but yeah, they are at the end of the day just the true Highland scrub python, true montane scrub python. But then the rest of the genus, there's Somalia kinghorni, which are the giant Australian scrub pythons, of which there are none in the U.S. hobby. Uh, as far as I know, there's still 2 females at Reptile Gardens in South Dakota, and that's it. There were some in the hobby. The Barkers had some. Eugene Bissett had some. I just don't think anyone ever got them to breed, and now they're gone. So it's unfortunate, but at least they're plentiful in Australia and in the wild. So it's not like it's a conservation crisis that they're not over here, but pretty cool to have them. Maruki scrub pythons, southern scrub pythons are very similar to the kinghorni, and obviously they're geographically the closest. The largest kind of all-encompassing species is Somalia amethystina, which essentially, as it's currently described, are animals from the Cape York Peninsula all the way through every part of Papua New Guinea, West Papua, and PNG, all the surrounding islands that are close to the mainland. The ones that are on the eastern side of the island. As of now, all amethystina, even though there's some that look really, really different over there than really almost anything. The islands to the kind of on the southern side west are like Key and Aru islands. Those are amethystina as well. To the north, Biak. I just have to imagine the other islands right around Biak have similar scrub pythons on them. I've never seen I'm blanking anyway. Any of the other islands that are right around Biak that you see chondros labeled as like Num4 Island. There's one. That's what I was looking for. And then the Raja Ampat archipelago. Those are all amethystina as well. So Wageo, Kofiau, all those islands over there. And then throughout that range, they're very, very different. There are the Barneck phenotype, the one that a lot of people are familiar with. They're in the Bird's Head Peninsula, so basically as far north and west as you can get. And then all of those surrounding islands in the Raja Ampat archipelago, they are also the Barneck phenotype. The Biak animals are probably the most unique of all of the scrub pythons. They're kind of the opposite of Biak green tree pythons. They seem to be smaller than a lot of their kind of closely related locality types. They're they're bad feeders. Frankly, they establish very poorly in captivity. They've only been bred once in captivity, and to my knowledge, none of those animals are still around. So kind of unfortunate. And they're not collected very commonly, which is strange considering a lot of green trees are still coming from biak. Most of the imports, or the ones that are exported out of Indonesia, are biaks. So I think that would be a fascinating research trip to
That
go over
was
there.
Lawrence that bred them. I think I remember that
Yeah,
NPR episode.
yep. I believe he got them in 2019 or 2018. So and no one knows whatever happened to those animals. One made it stateside, and I don't think made it very long with the keeper who got it. So um, yeah, it's always a shame when a production like that happens. It is so groundbreaking, but 5-7 years later, there's nothing to show for it. Which is another reason why, for not that instance, but I had seen scrub python keepers and breeders throughout time, like, be really focused on them, get rid of their entire collection. Let's get a couple generations in. Now, where did they all go? So for me, I'm like, no one has ever really dedicated themselves to these animals. And for, even any business side of it put aside, like, these animals should be in the hobby for the longevity of it. Like, in my opinion, they're the best snake to keep. Obviously, I'm super biased. If you're not a python person, you're not going to agree with me. But if you are a python lover, that's how I feel. And all the different localities that exist out there, all the different species, they're amazing. And there's been a lot more, more visibility with them over the last 5-6 years or so. So that's pretty encouraging. But and a lot more people breeding them now. Like last year, there were probably 10 times as many captive bred individuals available in the U.S. as there were wild caught, which is insane considering 2017. We'd be lucky if there was one clutch of scrub pythons produced in the U.S. and imports were still flooding in. This is before they were banned in Florida, which is where 90+% of them were coming through. Before Cameron sold Bushmaster, which is where a lot of them were coming through as well. And now rarely do imports of wild caught scrubs come into the U.S. Kind of a good thing for the captive bred market, considering it actually does exist now. But I think last year there were like 17 or 18 clutches in the U.S. So that's not a lot on the grand scheme of things, but compared to zero as the average a decade ago, that's absolutely incredible. I definitely got off track. The species, got it. Okay, so the Amethystina complex, there's a lot, the animals that are called Waminas, the Highland types, the Southern Maruki individuals, those are all encompassing that species. And then if you move over to Tanimbar Island, that's Somalia, Nata, those are the true like dwarf scrub pythons. Those are the ones that have an average adult size of like 6 to 7 feet. Some people have tried to claim that Arus or Moluccans or some of these other species are a smaller insular, type of scrub python. It's not true at all. The Halmaheras seem to be a little bit smaller on average. Same with the Biaks, but again, I've heard of credible accounts of 12-foot individuals from both islands. So who's to say? So Tanimbar is the only island that is a true through and through kind of dwarf type of scrub python. My biggest individual is 7 feet long, and she should not get any bigger. I saw a 9-foot Tanimbar scrub one time, but that animal was over 20 years old. So, gives you perspective on how long it took that animal to get to that size. Then kind of go a little bit northwest a little bit, you get to the Moluccas, Ambon and Saram. That's where the Moluccan scrub pythons come from. The gold and purple scrub pythons, kind of the ones that are at the top of everyone's list, and probably currently the most valuable ones as well, considering their extremely low supply in the hobby. And then you go north of there to northern Moluccas to Halmahera. That's where Somalia Tracia is from, Halmahera scrubs. And then some of the surrounding islands have similar looking phenotypes of scrub pythons as well. That none of them have, I don't think, ever even been collected from some of those islands. So who's to say really what's going on? But those are the Halmahera scrub pythons, kind of the ranging from yellow to dark brown, silver, but more kind of larger blotch bands, very different pattern, very different snakes overall, a lot more secretive, um, smaller, but absolutely amazing. They're, in my opinion, they're probably going to be the most popular scrub python to keep in 5 to 10 years.
Very cool.
So that is the
Great
context
answer.
as it currently stands.
Mike, when you get a chance, can you load up those pictures that I sent you? And I'll keep talking. So, big thing with carpet pythons is often, like you get the most annoying question is, what is my carpet python, right? And when it
Yeah.
comes to scrubs, I see it often as well because you get imports and then you're like, what is it that I'm looking at? Because it'll be sold as something and half the time it's not. I got a pair
Right.
of scrubs that is technically not legal where I keep it. So I keep it with a buddy and it's at his house. And he
Okay.
actually reached out to you to ask you, what is my scrub python? Which he'll post pics
Mhm.
up right now. And it was something different than what it was sold to us as. And I'm just curious, how
Yeah.
do you go about figuring out what these Walcotts that come in actually are? Like when you look at it, like, so I want him to load up the picture so you can say, I can tell you what you already told me it is. Or do you want me to let you
Okay.
decide
Hopefully I
it?
said the
Pardon me?
same thing. I said hopefully I said the same thing I said in
So do you want me to tell you what you
both of
told me
them.
what it is before? Or okay, so you
Sure.
told me it was
Might as well.
a well, you told Shan it was a patternless exanthic Tannenbar. Okay, it was
Yeah.
sold
Okay.
as a Maruki Highland, I think is what it was sold to us as. So I'm
Okay.
just Mike, you good to post it up, or are you still struggling?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
try to post it up
So my big thing
here in a
is
second.
when you look at a picture, if somebody was to show you anything, do you think you can identify which locality or which species it would be?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just
Yeah.
curious,
I
like, do
think
you
at
mind
this
going
point
on, like, how do you
you know.
figure that? Are you going by scale count? Are you going by head shape? Are you going by coloration?
Sure. I mean, a lot of different factors. It also, depends on how old the animal is. I think sometimes when they're really young and they're, if they're orange, red, it can be kind of hard to tell. Um, the thing that's nice about scrubs compared to green trees is that the differences within the green trees are pretty subtle relative to the scrub pythons. Where once they get some size of them, it's like shockingly different as to what they are once you're kind of familiarized with all of the different locality types. A couple of years ago, there was this big rash, especially in the US. I'm not sure if it was the same in Canada, of a bunch of animals that were imported as hmm, that's the animal I told you was a Tannenbar? I don't know if I lost you or if you muted yourself.
Sorry, I
Well,
was 100% muted. I was going to say that one's in full blown shed. It is a pair. And yeah, it is the
okay.
animal you said that were patternless, exanthic, Tannenbar. And that's why I'm wondering, like, how you identify
Oh,
them all. The other one is a lot better because that one's in full blue. So
okay.
look at him again and tell me what it is that you think.
Yeah, that's not a Tannenbar. That's definitely like a patternless Southern Amethyst. I wonder if the other one
Okay,
might be
one
a
sec.
Tannenbar then, because uh, that would be crazy if you got sold a pair that were different species.
That would really suck,
Um,
actually.
that would suck really bad because then you need
Okay,
two
so
scrub
what
pythons.
did you say that one was?
A patternless Southern type
So it would be a
Amethystina.
Maruki, or most
So,
likely no.
so kind of, it's up for debate right now as to the distribution of the patternless phase within the southern scrub python population. So a little over a year ago, I had Daniel Natouche on my podcast, who's probably the leading world expert on scrub pythons in the wild. Um, and with that said, though, his research on scrub pythons in Papua New Guinea and beyond have been kind of adjacent to his research on green tree pythons. So that was not his primary focus in those ranges. Um, that's the other animal or the same one.
That's the other.
Okay, so I was totally wrong. Yeah, those are patternless Southern Amethystina. Um, I'd love to see the picture afterward. I'll look at the
I'll send
picture
them to
that
you
I
after.
Yeah, that I originally said it was a Tannenbaron. I will say especially when they're smaller, there's some very subtle differences. Right, that like right now with that animal, the color is not the to the extent of kind of like the silver that a Tannenbar would be. They're very silver, and they stay very silver. It's not like with like a ball python or a carpet where the axanthics can kind of brown out over time. They really don't do that. And then some like the scale tipping going on um, is another tell. The head structure a little bit as well, and then just kind of the overall size. Is that animal like 6-7 feet long or so?
Yeah, easily 7 feet. Like
Yeah.
they're tiny
So
little animals, but they're nice and long.
right. So at that size for an amethystina, they're not quite mature yet. So they haven't kind of grown into their mature body. Where if a tannenbar was that big, it would be a full blown adult, have a big head, adult proportions. Where that animal doesn't quite have adult proportions. Where that's another tell because that animal is going to be of adult proportions at 9 feet long. Um, where if you get a tannenbar 9 feet long, unless it's like 20 years old, that animal is probably power fed beyond the point of no return. um, so yeah, well, I guess I've
Hey,
corrected
it's all good, man.
myself
I didn't know.
lively
I was
enough.
just curious to see how it is that you identify them, if they are identifiable, and what
Yeah.
about when people cross them? I'm guessing it gets even
So
crazier or harder at that point, right?
yeah, I guess to go back to what I was saying before about the southern animals, the patternless phenotype, it's a recessive gene, and it is plentiful in the southern amethystina population. It is not present in the amethystina that are in Australia, and at least from what Daniel told me on the podcast, the furthest southern extent of that range on mainland Papua New Guinea, like Maruki around there, you're not getting patternless animals there either. It's more kind of in the middle range, kind of what in the U.S. hobby is referred to as like a Tanamera type southern scrub python, where they're a little bit darker than the Maruki animals, more true brown pigmentation, where the Maruki southern animals are more of like a different shades of tan. They don't really get very dark. That middle range is where Daniel said those patternless animals are coming from, and then the kind of jungle variant, the what are known as like highland types, which are not truly not actually highland animals. They're kind of at the jungle in the jungles on the base of the mountain range to the south, that have like the orange phenotype that everyone really loves. Uh, According to Daniel, you're not getting patternless animals there either. So there's some point in the longitudinal shift of that range where that recessive gene is much more present in the population. Um, I'd have to imagine if you took a patternless animal and bred it to a high uh, like a very phenotypically expressive orange animal that is from like kind of that jungle region, that you get a clutch of these locality cross southerns, essentially breed them back together, you're probably going to get a quarter of those babies as patternless, but then they're no longer true locality. It So the locality thing, it was a very heavy debate, especially like kind of pre-COVID, where I had an individual who was considered like one of the experts in the field tell me that the same animal was two different localities, two different instances, when I didn't ask him either time what it was. So I thought that was very funny. And uh, one second, sorry. So to me, I'm like, there's something going on here that we're missing. What really got me kind of to the point of like, all right, well, we know about these locality types. We have no idea what we're talking about. Is the first time I produced Barneck scrub pythons. Is my first clutch of scrub pythons. Um, the range of phenotypes of the babies was just absolutely insane. Um, from actually, they're behind me. You can't quite see them, but like uh, here, let's. You see that animal up there, very heavily patterned, like a really cool, like orange base color, and then one of her brothers is almost completely patternless. Neither of the parents look like either of them. The parents, while sold to me as different localities, were phenotypically not too different from one another. They both kind of had a bit of a reduced pattern. The female was darker than the male, had a darker tail. But when you saw them sitting together, they looked like pretty similar snakes. And then the offspring were just all over the place. So that result is based on one of two things. It is either based on it having been a locality cross and kind of screwed with the genetics and threw a bunch of interesting offspring, or that's just what barneck scrub pythons do. They're just variable throughout their range. That's kind of at this point what I believe and what a lot of the hobby is currently going off of. For instance, for the longest time, a certain phenotype of barneck scrub python was imported as a Jayapura barneck scrub python. That does not exist, and they're not even close. Barneck scrub pythons don't live anywhere close to Jayapura. So the fact that there were people, having heated arguments on Facebook about whether this barneck scrub python was a Jayapura, I was like, okay, neither of you have any idea what you're talking about, which is what it is. The information just wasn't really there at the time. So with the barnecks in particular, I just label mine as barneck. I don't put any locality name on it. Sarong was the locality type name that was given to the more heavily patterned animals, Manokwari to the more reduced patterned animals, and then some animals were imported as Kofiau. Whether or not there was any legitimacy to that, there's no way of knowing. The main phenotypic difference in barneck scrub pythons are mainland versus island type. The ones that occur in Raja Ampat are very distinctly different than the ones that are on mainland Papua New Guinea. So that is for sure different. I'm not convinced that any of them exist in the hobby currently from Raja Ampat. Just I've seen a couple that have some resemblance, but then if you see wild pictures, you're like, that is very shockingly different. Mostly from a pattern standpoint, a little bit from color as well. Their color isn't super brilliant. Their pattern is just very off the wall compared to the barneck scrub pythons that you kind of think about and you see in the hobby. So it's been a process of trying to figure it all out. At least with the Halmaheras, the Tanimbars, the Moluccans, those are all pretty good to go. Small ranges, smaller islands. They are very distinctive. They're their own unique species. No real debate there. I think at one point Dan Maliri had gotten some Moluccan scrub pythons that he knew specifically were collected on Ambon, and then from there on out, everyone else's Moluccan scrub pythons were Ambon suddenly. It's like, okay, that's convenient, I guess. Kind of same thing how all the white lip pythons were Tamika after Dan had white lip pythons from Tamika. So, that's how it always goes. The next kind of debated locality were the Wamena scrub pythons. They're kind of essentially the northeastern scrub python. It was like, okay, are they actually coming from Wamena? Where are they actually coming from? And upon a little bit of further research, which really just requires going on to iNaturalist, Wamena, that area is like the westernmost extent of their range. They range from there through Jayapura. So a true Jayapura scrub python has that kind of brown, muted pattern, very thin neck bar look, and then all the way east throughout PNG, those animals range. There's some minute differences the further you get throughout the range, but that is essentially the northeastern scrub python, just in the hobby, because obviously we can only the Indonesian side of Papua New Guinea exports, we get the westernmost extent of that range, where the entire eastern part of the range is inaccessible to us. Now that we know that, the label Wamena or Jayapura is generally accepted and recognized as the same thing. Like Ryan Young calls them northern scrub pythons, completely acceptable. Someone called them northeastern scrub pythons, completely acceptable as well. I still say Wamena just because that's what they've always been, but I feel like I've done enough talking about what they really are to where, if you are looking into them and you've done your research, you already know kind of what the deal is. So then the southern animals, like I was describing earlier, that's still where most of the confusion lays and where I'm not even fully sure what's going on. From my understanding, though, they're all very genetically similar. So when it comes to, okay, is a southern pairing a pure pairing, is it a locality cross? I personally don't really think it matters that much. Same thing with the Barnecks. You're just dealing with a much larger range where the southern type scrub pythons come from. I just want to make the nicest looking animals from that range. And if I can, obviously an animal that's a very clear Maruki phenotype, almost no black pigment, very much different shades of tan, and a very clear, Orange Highland phase, so to speak, type, whether that animal's from Tamika or wherever. I wouldn't breed those two together because they're very phenotypically different. And I've seen the results of pairings like that, and they're all over the place. You have animals that are super orange, animals that are dark, like that just doesn't really interest me. Might I produce animals that I have a pair that I think is pretty similar? They throw something completely off the wall. Sure, it's part of the learning process. But at least the way that I look at it, that's just not the approach that I would take. And then luckily then to the south, the Key Island animals, the Aru Island animals, they're really distinctive. You know what those are. So keeping those pure is pretty easy.
Very nice.
Where did the oxables kind of fill in there?
So that's another, I'm glad you brought that up. That's another kind of point of contention of whether or not scrub pythons actually exist there. Oxabill was the label given to the, what we now kind of give the blanket term Orange Highland type to, which neither label is good. The true label that I don't know if the hobby could adapt it would be like jungle phase southern scrub python. But calling an animal an oxabill, even if they are there, they're from the entire width of that island of mainland Papua New Guinea. So to call that animal, honestly, my personal opinion, a lot of the animals that have been imported to the U.S. as oxabills are probably from Tamika. If you go on iNaturalist and look at the pins around Tamika, they're like almost identical to what you would think what the oxabill phenotype was kind of described as. And Tamika and oxabill are not very close to each other. But then if you go all the way east into PNG and look at some pins, you see animals that are very similar to the animals in Tamika. So it's kind of based on the longitude, a very wide locality here, a very wide locality here, a very wide locality down here that goes down into Australia even. And then within all of those different types, all very genetically similar animals.
Very nice. One question I have for you is, so if you look at a lot of places in Australia, a lot of those natural barriers tends to create speciation and separate two species from each other.
Sure.
If you're looking at green trees, which green trees seem to inhabit pretty much the same territory as all the scrubs, are their species seem to be related the same, like the different species on the same similar spots as the green trees? Do they seem to split off at the same areas?
Pretty
Yeah.
similar. Yeah. I'm not as familiar with the exact kind of distribution of the green trees as far as the speciation goes, but for instance, like the geographic separation of the barneck scrub pythons and then the northeastern type scrub pythons is that bottleneck of the Bird's Head Peninsula. And then kind of all the mountainous ranges there. Exact geographic barriers, I couldn't tell you. Like right at this point, there's this channel that has existed for this many millions of years. I'm not that
You can
deep
say it,
into it.
I'd believe it.
Yeah, well, I've already shown my hand. Um, but obviously that central mountain range that speciates everything in Papua New Guinea does the same thing with the scrub pythons, where the biggest difference is north to south, and then the Biak animals, like I've said, are very different than the mainland animals as well. Kind of, I think that's Azuria are the animals from Biak and the islands around there, and then the southern type animals kind of same way. I don't believe that like Maruki and Aru green trees are speciated. I think they're all still viridis, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I could be wrong, but I want to say that all of the southern type animals are still lumped into one species, where the northerns have been split into three. Um,
Yeah, I'd have to
so
check that. I don't know
like
those by heart.
yeah, no, I mean that's why I was saying I don't either. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of the speciation, how it exists in green tree pythons, tree monitors, white lip pythons, exists the exact same way in scrub pythons.
Oh, have you seen those pictures of the Bismarck scrubs and
There
how
have,
different they look?
yeah, they look like carpet pythons. They're they're super unique. Yeah, that would be an absolute dream to see one of those in person one day, no matter where it is. That yeah, they're super different. The the PNG side of the island, and then all the little surrounding islands. There's some scrub pythons from over there that look nothing like anything we've ever seen. That's a treasure trove over there.
Yeah, it's like you said how they follow white lips
Yeah,
and some other and like the green trees and stuff. It's kind of like with the white lips, you got on Bismarck, you got the ring python, which is
right.
like a white lip, but
Yeah,
maybe. Well, I haven't kept them, so I'm not sure. Have you kept ring pythons?
I haven't kept ring pythons, but from the people who I know who've kept them, yeah, they say they're kind of, I mean, maybe a good comparison would be kind of like the scrubs to the bolins, where like, yeah, they're pretty much the same snake, but there's some differences, probably just based on some of the genetic separation and evolution that's occurred because of that.
Very nice. So switching it up to more captive keeping. Do you mind going through
Mhm.
maybe quickly how you breed him or what you have bred and your kind of success?
Yeah,
I'm assuming here that most pythons breed very similarly. That there's kind of like that, recipe for how to breed a
yeah,
python, right? So I'm assuming they kind of fall under
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
I'd love to hear what's your process or what you do kind of differently for, let's say, a scrub that you wouldn't do for a green tier, you wouldn't do for a carpet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any like large differences necessarily. I think if anything with the scrubs, and my guess is this is a function of dealing with mostly wild caught animals. They seem much less tolerant to screw ups in the way that you're cycling them. Um, where like retics, carpet pythons, multi generation chondros, etc., maybe a little bit more accustomed, have that kind of more baked into the genetics, how we breed them. Um, I still don't have it nearly figured out. I don't think with the scrub pythons. This is my 6th year breeding them, 5th year getting good babies. The barnecks are the ones I've produced the most of. Every year that I've produced scrub pythons so far, I've produced barnecks. I've also bred kind of like highland type southern animals, the Wamena type animals, um, the kind of like the Tanamera middle range southern animals that were het patternless. And then this year I was able to check off Halmaheras and Arus. And the Arus were I mean, that's probably the most proud I am of any breeding I've done. That was the first ones ever produced in the
That's amazing.
U.S. And yeah, I'm super thrilled with them. And I've been working on it for a while. The female that gave me the clutch this year, this was her fourth year. I attempted breeding her. 3 years in a row, she developed follicles, locked up, and reabsorbed on me. So I'm glad she finally decided to go through with it. I don't know if I don't think I'm missing any. So a decent amount. I've gotten infertile eggs from Moluccan scrub pythons twice. Those are heartbreakers. So you know working on it, but they really do seem to be triggered by food cycling, as do a lot of pythons. Um, and then, but then there's a bit of a catch-22 there, because they are triggered by food cycling, but they're also very prone to obesity as adults. So the thing that I have been trying to get down over time is, okay, what do you do with that female who you fed up to breed and then didn't go and now is carrying all this extra weight? Um, I've had females lay, and one female in particular that had a mostly infertile clutch, that like after she laid, I'm like, you still look fat. Like that's not good. Like you should look kind of like a deflated tire right now. And I'm like, you need to lose weight. So, but that female I tried to cycle her for a few years before she finally went, and never really backed off the food as much as I probably should have during the off periods. So at this point, it's kind of for me more seasonal, spring, fall, or early winter to early spring, heavy feeding, late summer to early fall, heavy feeding, and then obviously if a female is developing follicles off season for whatever reason, I break the rules for that animal, give her the support that she needs. But I do a winter cool down, kind of similar to a lot of other python breeders, cut them off food for 10 to 12 weeks or so, and let the room cycle down naturally to the low 70s at night. It'll get back up to the upper 70s during the day, probably 80, 81 on some warmer days. Being where I am in West Texas, there's really no such thing as a cold day out here. So, there's some cold nights, but in January, I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt for the most part. So, it's been interesting. It's honestly probably not as good for breeding pythons as the northern climates, like when I was in Indiana and Illinois. But anyway, with that said,
With your
kind of,
with the food cycling, what does like high frequency mean? Like how often and like how big?
yeah, so it's something I've experimented with. So an adult scrub python to me never really needs to eat a meal bigger than a jumbo rat. Um, and I know for a fact I threw a female off of a cycle this year by giving her too big of a meal too early on, after kind of coming up from the cool down period, where I gave her a jumbo rat and she was still looking, and I had an extra one and I gave it to her, and she had a bad digestion. She was sluggish for a while, and then she never was receptive of a male after that point. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do that again. That was, I figured, hey, you're looking for food, you probably need it. And I guess with these guys, their eyes are bigger than their stomachs a bit.
Do you ever wonder though if we kind of
So
make those up? Like it's not working, so I assume it's because I gave her that extra meal. Like, are you sure that's actually what happens? Because I feel like sometimes we kind of associate things with the outcome without actually maybe
yeah,
even being that. Because I personally, I don't think feeding her an extra rat would throw her off the entire season, but that's my opinion.
sure. In this instance, I do think so, because she kind of had some like diarrhea, and like you could tell her digestion was pretty poor, and her system was kind of screwed up for a little while because of it. If it wasn't for that, then I probably wouldn't have thought it. But it looked like she kind of was going through it for the better part of a month, um, and didn't, like, most of the time with the scrub pythons, you feed them the next night. I go in just to kind of check everyone at the end of the night once the lights are off. They're all looking. She wasn't looking for a while. So seeing that response was shut down, I'm like, that wasn't the thing to do. I generally speaking, I totally agree with you on that specifically. I think just in this instance, I think that is what happened.
Cool.
Um, Especially considering it was her first meal out of cooldown. If that was meal 3, that maybe would have been a different story. But I think it was her first meal, she hadn't eaten for 3 months, and I think I totally screwed it up.
Okay, I didn't know it was
So
first meal. Yeah, for sure. First meal,
yeah,
I give the tiniest things, and I might give a medium
yeah.
rat the second one, then a large jumbo the third. For that,
Right. So that's where I messed that up. I've done like a jumbo rat every 3 weeks during the heavier feeding periods. I've done large rats every other week. As a female kind of is progressing in her follicular development, I'll decrease meal size and increase frequency. Um, I've been doing the larger, less frequent, so like a jumbo every 3 weeks for the last couple of years. I think I'm going to go back to a large every other this year. Um, but also with a focus on packing some weight on before breeding starts as well. I think this season I honestly had a tragically bad scrub python year. Um, a major step back to what I had the year before, and I think that comes down to lack of preparedness before breeding started, where I didn't start kind of increasing my feeding until after I had started pairing. And the reason why I did that was my previous year when I moved, I had 10 females lay, but of those 10 females, 7 of them were in egg bound. And I was trying to like, what the hell happened here? This is not a coincidence. Um, I still have no idea. Knock on wood, this year I haven't had any egg bound females of any species. So, if anything, it may have been just being more settled in. Um, I also I think my water quality was probably my main problem. But who knows? One thing that I was concerned about, though, was potentially that some of the females had too much weight on them, and that may have been part of the egg binding. So I think I overcorrected to underfeeding last season, and now I'm trying to kind of hit somewhere in the middle. So I guess we'll see. This time next year, I'll have an idea of whether what I did worked or if I completely failed again. So
One of the questions I had was, how are you heating them like with a hotspot? Because I believe you use radiant heat panels. How are you
I
utilizing
do.
them to not like overheat and, as Ryan
Yeah.
Ryan Young would say, turn them into snake jerky?
Yeah. Just kind of keeping it at a lower set point and having a longer ramping period. Obviously shutting panels off at night. Uh, the thing is with the females, they really won't bask until they're at a more advanced part of their follicular development. So having that warmer spot isn't really totally necessary. Um, Honestly, until they've reached like probably upwards of 20 millimeter follicles. So I'm more concerned about the room ambient up until that point, and frankly, I think in some instances that introducing of the hotspot helps them kind of continue that progression. Where if they had the hotspot the whole time, I've had instances where my success was lower, or I had some weird fertility issues, or whatever it may be. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can go into that, but for me, if I can keep heating elements off, I do in general. So if I can err on the side of ambient, I absolutely will do that. Um,
So you basically just probably how I do it, at least with the Bahamas, and I do use heat panels with my pits as well, just because they're the cages they're in, and I'd rather not use heat tape to heat PVC cages.
yeah,
Um, I kind of set it just to almost as an ambient, especially with the Bahamas.
yeah,
I'll set it depending on how cool the room is, because I don't like they're in my bedroom, so it's a little cooler in there. So like in the winter, I could set it at 75, 77, and that still gives them like an 85-degree hot spot because the
yeah,
probe's kind of on the back wall.
sure,
Like it's under the heat panel, but like lower down.
yeah,
While
sure.
now I have to ramp it up a bit. And then
Mm,
with the pits, I just set it to like 75 or
yeah,
78 maybe. And it probably gets a bit warmer right underneath it, but it's not gonna
right.
overheat them.
Yeah, so like when I first introduced the panels with the females, I'll put them at like 82, 83, 84. Um, really, really minimal, mostly for the ambient bump in the enclosure. And then as they progress, as their basking behavior increases, then it gets bumped to like 88 to 90. So there's times where I can temp gun the females when they're basking and they'll be like 100 degrees, but when they are reaching those temperatures, they'll go up in the morning for a few hours and then they're back down. Um, so, and like my Aru clutch this year, for instance, she's in a taller enclosure. It's 3 feet tall. So she can't like just sit on top of her nest box and bask. She had to go up onto her shelf and get under the platform or on the platform. And, I would temp gun the platform and it's like, it's hot. It's in the mid upper 90s. And every day when she was gravid, she would do this, very cyclical basking behavior and the clutch was flawless. So I I think from what I've found, and honestly, a lot of it came from my experience with my rattlesnakes. The shorter, hotter basking period, I think, is the way to go. Promotes a more natural basking cycle for the gravid females. Like I'll probably even shorten my basking window this year as compared to what I had it at for this coming season.
See, I think you think your animals are smarter than I do, because I always fear that if you give them a hot spot that's too warm or things like that, like they're going to go and cook themselves or they're going to injure themselves, right?
Yeah,
So I always err on the side of caution. I'm like, I'm not going to give a python a
yeah,
hot spot of 96. I'm going to give them 86 to 88, because
yeah,
if I give it too hot, I'm afraid they're just going to be like idiots and overcook themselves or nuke their
sure,
eggs. You know what I mean? Like, um, I
yeah,
love the idea that if you're seeing them and they're going to bask only for an hour or two and going away, I'm sure that's super healthy. But there's a part of me
yeah,
that always
for sure.
wonders if the animal is actually smart enough to know that. But
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the way that I thought about it was like if you're using bulbs, there's going to be a very concentrated spot of that heat. And like the way that I have to imagine that these animals are basking in the wild is that they're sticking a portion of their body out from the canopy and the sun is just beaming down on that portion of their body for a short period of time. And that heat is heating up their entire body, heating all of the eggs. And I have these panels. I regret the panels at this point, but I didn't know better back at the time. Um, so I like the smaller panels too that I can kind of use almost as somewhat of a light bulb, um, like a heat emitter bulb kind of. But I personally have found that they will move when they've had enough. That and sometimes the clutches that I've been less pleased with are ones where like they will just sit there constantly. And the way that I see it is that they're not getting warm enough. So the animals that are getting warm enough, they're going there for that brief period of time and then they're leaving.
so I gotta ask here. Oh,
Have you
sorry. Go for it, Mike.
uh, have you tested out any heating like bulbs with scrubs and stuff, or is it just the rattlesnakes for now?
I haven't yet. I definitely would like to. But yeah, right now it's just been with the
I think the
rattlesnakes.
question was along the same lines. If you wouldn't have done heat panels, how is that what you would be doing? You'd be doing heat bulbs instead.
Yeah, I would be doing, I would be doing the bulbs.
How would you
You
do
know,
it? I'm looking at you've got stacks like me behind, right? So
yeah,
that's where my head goes. Like that doesn't work.
it wouldn't work in my cages that I have currently, how I have the shelves. It wouldn't. So that's why I'm sticking with the panels because I'm not going to have a gap in between my cages to have the bulb sitting. There would be in cages underneath, and then the snakes would be basking like in some cases 2 inches under the
And so
bulb.
much
Like that's
snake
not going
room
to work.
wasted, precious space.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. So in the future, like with my Spilotes cages, they have like a half shelf on the back. Maybe do a cage with a half shelf and have the basking on the side without the shelf with the bulb. I don't know, but I think that'll come down to designing future cages. Plenty of breeders have success with the panels. I think you just got to learn how to make them work best for you. So that's kind of where I'm at this point is making the panels work for what they are. And if I in the future build new enclosures, fit
I
those to
almost
have
wonder if
bulbs.
you could almost like let's say you had a perfect rectangular, you cut off a triangle corner off of each cage. So just enough to fit that perfect dome
Yeah,
right in the corner so you could still use the stackable. And then your heat would be coming on
yeah,
an angle from the top. I don't know if you can kind of picture what's. So that's if I
yeah.
decided to do
Sure.
something like that, I think I would build something like that so you'd still have airflow for your dome. you would still be able to stack the
Mm.
cages and you would have access to it. I don't know. That's kind of where my brain would be going for making that work.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen anybody
yeah, that
do
would
it,
definitely
but
be. But
I feel like it would work.
I'm not sure.
I think
I
some of the
think
old Visions maybe have the light fixture
Mhm.
thing kind of built
Yeah,
in, but I
yeah,
know I have a couple cages where I did get I got the Arcadia light thing that you can mount inside the cage. I know you could probably just use like a flat pan with a ceramic
But
light
then you'd
bulb
have to create a
thing that you
big cage
generally use in
inside,
the
right?
house.
You'd have to cage.
Not necessarily. Honestly, I don't use a cage in mine, and I haven't had any issues. I know Dennis McNamara, I believe, doesn't use one either because, like, even if you put a cage on it, they might. Well, I've seen videos of snakes like getting in the cage, and then that's really bad. So like, it's almost better just to leave it open. Like, they're not. Honestly, they're not really dumb enough to coil on the light
I
itself.
disagree.
And then if they, but yeah, I haven't had an issue. The Wama python I had would kind of goes through it sometimes, but doesn't actually like
yeah.
stay on it. It wouldn't because there is a gap on the Arcadia ones right at the top where like a
Mm.
snake could go through it. But I've also set it up in the juvenile Bahama boa I've had, and he I never see him up there. He just coils underneath the light as if it's normal, and then at night, obviously, it's not an issue if he's kind of climbing around there, which I haven't seen him do.
Yeah,
Obviously, you would have to be careful, but yeah.
there's definitely something to be said for the cage promoting the snake messing with it more. Like when I was keeping a lot of monitors, I put like cages around the monitor basking bulbs, and they would be climbing on that thing all the time. You just hang that thing in the middle of the enclosure, they never mess with it because they can't really get to it. And then even if they do climb the ceiling around to it, it's like they have nothing to grab onto. They could just like jump down onto the bulb or whatever. Obviously, snakes is a different story, but I feel like there is something to be said. But then I don't know. I think I'd be too nervous as well to just have that bulb live in the cage. I have used some of like the Arcadia UV fixtures that do emit a decent amount of heat. I've never had them really mess with that all that much. So
Yeah, I've only tried it with like a couple things because like even with that bulb, like I'm right now it's just 25 watt like extreme like the intense basking bulb, which honestly like depending on the room temperature isn't enough. Like even when
mm,
using bulbs, you kind of have to adjust. Like it's the
yeah,
same as
sure,
double checking your heat panel and that. Like you still got to like oh well it's only getting 85 on the hotspot or only getting 80, and then okay you need to put a 50 watt in, and then but then if you're gonna have a heat wave you got to switch it out or even fully shut it off if
right,
you're going to way to work or something.
yeah, 100%. Yep.
Very nice, Mike. You got any more questions regarding scrubs, or you want to switch it up?
I think we can maybe hit on some colubrid stuff now.
Not as
Do
interesting,
it.
but we can.
Your colubrid collection is definitely awesome. Do you want to kind of do like a brief overview of the Spilotes and the Pituophis that you work with, and anything else that you might have?
Yeah, so those two genuses are my focuses for sure. With the Spilotes, I have the both the Pilatus, the South American variety, and then the Pilatus mexicanus, Central American. My localities are well, I have two Mexican localities, so Yucatan and Veracruz, and then a pair of the Tamaulipas crossed Honduran from Jason Hood that are super nice. And then I have two female sulfurious, the Amazon puffing snakes, that were supposed to be a pair but are not. So now I'm on the hunt for a male, and now I have holdbacks from the two clutches of Mexicanus that I have produced as well. They're my favorite colubrid. Period. They're I mean they're absolutely gorgeous. They're a larger colubrid, but not totally unmanageable. Even though I don't think there's really ever a truly unmanageable colubrid, but it's not like a big yellowtail crebo that's going to be a heavy, fast moving snake. They're super light bodied, and then typically very good demeanor once they're outside of their enclosure. They're very very cage defensive snakes, which is actually kind of fun. But as soon as you get them out, they like do like three figure eights around your forearm, and they just kind of sit there. I don't think I've ever been bitten by a Spilotes outside of the enclosure. Inside, different story. Even though I try to avoid it, but they got some range on them, and they're sneaky. They're definitely sneaky
Do
snakes.
have they done their cool mouth puffing thing where they like almost like the
Yeah,
boega, but like it's their own style of it?
yeah, like they're kind of with the Pilatus, they kind of go more vertical, and then like they'll like crack their mouth open a little bit, where the Sulfurius are more like a wide puff of the throat. It's cool to have both of the species. They're super different from one another. Um, every aspect, they're probably their colorations with some individuals the most similar, but their head structure is totally different. I almost kind of like equated to Australian olives and Papuan olive pythons, where like that's like the Pilatus or the Australian olives. They have kind of that more streamlined head, and then the Apodora have that bulldog head. That's kind of the same thing that the Sulfurius have. Um, Sulfurius are larger as well, kind of more round bodied, so to speak, and then their puffing behavior, in my opinion, is a little bit different than one another, even though you're looking at a marginal gap between the two. But just the way that they're so visually oriented. I love visually oriented snakes. I think they're more interesting to work with. If you want to believe you can form a relationship with an animal, you can. I think it's more of a possibility with a more visual snake, or at least where they know what's going on. You don't open the enclosure, they don't just freak out immediately, or they're not a retic where they're just where's the food, even if there hasn't been a rodent in that room for 2 weeks. They're just much more of a calculating animal, and I just really I enjoy that a lot about them. And they make incredible display snakes, possibly the best display snake. I the best part about monitors from when I kept them is that they're fun to watch all day, climb around and do all their stuff. Spilotes are like the tree monitor of the snake world. They're always active during the day. I cohab them and they interact with each other all the time. That's probably the most fun part about it is the cohabbed enclosures, and the dynamics between them. Their breeding behaviors are very fun. They're all over the place when they're mating. um, I can't say enough good things about Spilotes. But then I also have a decent amount of Pituophis, numbers wise more than Spilotes. Kind of have like a pair of a lot of different types. So for the U.S. native stuff, I have Kankakee bull snakes, and then a few localities in northern pines. Classic Ocean County black and white northerns, and then a pair of the red phase Burlington County northerns from J. Jacoby that are maybe my favorite of my U.S. Pits, rivaled heavily by the Kentucky Northern Pines, which are I possibly one of the most beautiful North American snakes. Period. Um, Especially, I've never interacted with an adult, but man, I can't wait for mine to get
Oh, my
set
big
free.
female from Rob Nimmo is a puppy dog. She has some bad days, but for compared to the her mate, she is like you
Yeah,
can pull her out, you can take her outside for pictures. She's pretty nice. Although once you give her some food, she gets a little hissy with you. But yeah,
yeah,
no, they're just stunning, and like even just the variety with the limited lineage of them,
sure,
right? Like she's kind of one of the cleaner ones, where like she had like
okay,
as a baby, I think the black was a bit more defiant in it,
sure,
and then her yellow kind of came for it wasn't as muddy as some of the other ones you get, and then a bunch of
mm.
reds kind of come in as well.
Oh,
That'll
that's cool.
yeah, like you'll get some reds that start showing up.
Yeah,
Not like the Burlingtons or the other northern localities, but it's
yeah,
kind of similar. And then but then obviously you get the muddy ones, which are kind of cool in their own way as well.
sure. Yeah, my male was produced by Bob Ashley, and he is like a kind of like a ghostly head. It's really cool. Um, yeah, they're great. I have a pair of black pines as well. I absolutely love those snakes. And then um, I have hypo stillwater bull snakes. For bulls, it's just those and the Kankakees, and then the Depii jani Mexican pines, and I have a pair of the Cape gophers, the vertebralis as well. Oh, and the San Diego gopher, an envy snow San Diego gopher. So yeah,
Nice, nice. Those envy snows are really nice. I wish we could keep bulls and gophers here because we
Mm,
can't because Great Basins are native, so they kind of just ban the
oh,
whole species because they're all technically
yeah,
the same species, even though
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they should just split them up
I
and
mean,
be
man,
easier for us to keep.
for you up there in Canada to not be able to keep a snake native to San Diego because it's native to you seems like it's a little off geographically. But
It
I don't know.
depends
Yeah,
where in Canada I can keep them. You can't. So it really
Yeah.
depends. We have no bull snakes in Ontario, so it's not an issue whatsoever for me.
Okay.
So
That makes
yeah.
sense.
Alberta's in the same boat because they got bulls and they did the same law where you can't keep. Although Alberta's different, you can keep like a tiger salamander because they're like all over the place. They let people keep those, but then they ban some random newt that one of my buddies got I think arrested for at one of the
Jeez.
shows. So his
Yeah.
employee accidentally sent it in the box, and then Fish and Wildlife met him at the airport, and like he was in jail for like a night. So now he got like a newt tattoo just for fun. But yeah, no, they were. It was just it's like alpine newts, right? Like such like a niche
Mm,
thing. Probably because
yeah.
they could live there. Same as like Dion's rat snakes are banned there, which is like really weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's some weird laws in some places.
so just by
Yeah. I
curiosity, are
understand.
you keeping all your colubrids more rack systems, or are you cages?
For the Pituophis, yeah, they're all on rack systems. Right now, the only colubrids I have in cages are the Spilotes, and then my male blue beauties in a big grow tent. So, but yeah, other than that, rack systems for them. But that might change in the future as well, especially if I consolidate some projects and some space to make more room. You know, what's the point of having some of them, especially when they're big in racks? It's like I want to see those animals. So, but obviously they do very well in racks, but they don't need to be in racks. So that's probably something that in the future I'm gonna move towards.
Yeah, I find depending on the animal with the pits, they can be great in cages. Like that girl, she's usually out cruising around, or you walk in the room, she'll start cruising around. While the other ones I have, they're hiding. Like if they're out and you come in the room, they're gone, and they never want to be
Okay,
touched. So
interesting.
it almost depends on the animal. Like maybe
Yeah,
it depends on exposing them when they're a bit younger, or maybe
yeah,
it's just ingrained in them.
could be.
It's hard to
I
say.
feel like I feel like my bull snakes are a bit more flighty, but my pines they don't care at all. Um, so now that you mentioned that, so yeah, I wonder if the bulls would be a little freaked out in the cages, but I think like the northern pines, the black pine, the Mexicans, they probably would do pretty
Do you
well
have
in
any that
cages.
still the flighty ones still rattle their tail at all? Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Especially the bull snakes. Yeah, 100%. Some of them will do the full blown threat display. I'll be on the phone with people cleaning the rack is just to the left of me, and they're like, "What is happening over there?" I'm like, "The bull snake." That's so loud. It's pretty loud, yeah. So,
Oh yeah, definitely. Have your bulls nailed you at all yet, or no? Or are they usually pretty
uh,
good?
I don't think so. My male Stillwater hypo like attempted to woma python me like a month ago, but it's really about it. So
That's the greatest verb ever. I totally get it.
yeah,
Oh,
he
I
knew
knew
exactly what I
that's
meant
an
by it
action.
too.
It's a verb. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't had that happen to me yet.
but yeah,
I
I
have.
don't.
Yeah,
Now that I think about it, other than like little baby Mexican pines, not. I don't know if I've ever been bitten by a Pituophis. Maybe
yeah.
not.
My holdback Kentuckys, I was hoping were going to be nice because they were kind of
Mm,
nice when they were really babies, and now
yeah,
they're no, they'll just bite me. Like
I feel.
they'll go full threat display thing, and they're just kind of
Yeah,
they'll bite you as you're picking them up, which is kind of I was hoping they'd be a little better, so maybe I'll hold back some different ones this year.
I feel like with a lot of stuff, like a lot of like flightier colubrids, you got to just get them up right away. Like if they don't have a lot of time to think before they're in hand, it's like, okay, now we're cool. But if they can like do a circle back and rear back up at you, now you're fighting to get that animal to calm down for a longer period of time.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like the approach of how you go at it. Like if you were to
Yeah,
like come from the top and like actually grab them instead of
yeah,
kind of going underneath and just picking them up, even with the
right,
adults, you
yeah,
seem to get a different response. which
Oh,
is kind of
100%. Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, with most of my obviously non-venomous snakes, if they're in the hide, I'll just like pick the hide up and kind of like scoop their head with the hide and just grab them like that. Kind of create that visual separation, and typically that works pretty well for me.
Maybe it's just me, but having a snake that's tame really doesn't matter. I've always found that just with time having it, you got to pull it. Oh, the cage's all soiled. You got to pull them out. Hook, tap the head, pick up the animal, put him in, and then just by doing that,
Yeah,
after a year and a half, 2 years, I'd say 95% of pretty much any snake tames down. There's some that'll stay a holes the
100%.
entire time, but most of them just, and especially the
Yeah,
size of your collection, I can't see you just taming down each snake in there. Like, there's no way you're doing that.
I mean, honestly, the venomous I couldn't really tell you because I don't know. But with that said, though, a lot of the rattlesnakes, they're very accustomed, all of them really, they're very accustomed to how I work them. So unless it's feeding response, really, I never open an enclosure and have a negative reaction from any of them. Um, but of every animal that I have, which right now is around 280 snakes, I mean, really one snake in the entire house stands out to me as like she's a problem every time, no matter what. I think it's just that one
So out of
snake.
that 280, does that include babies, or is that just the regular ones excluding babies?
That
Okay,
includes
all right.
babies.
I was
It
say,
includes babies. But even I don't think any of the babies are problematic either.
oh, you
So no, okay, two. I have two, but the other one's a mangrove snake. That she's always mad, but she's not hard
you've
to
got
deal with.
better odds than me. I'd say out
So
of the 60 that are always here, excluding babies, I've got at least 4 or 5 that are just genuinely. It's always fun when you handle them. Like they bite at anything. They
yeah,
strike. You pass near them, they're striking at the window all the time.
what are they?
Mainly carpet pythons. Like all the other ones are tame, but I'd say
Okay.
95% are perfect. There's always a few that are just complete a-holes. So,
Yeah, yeah. That the ones that were that way for me were like some like the wild caught scrub pythons that I got when they were larger. Um, but I've either they've some of them either passed away or I've moved them to new homes since then. So yeah, at this point, I had a corner in my garage that for a while was like the corner of death, where like they'd all feed off each other, slamming the glass. But now only one of them is left in that corner, and I have her in the top cage for a reason. So I try to keep her as minimally stimulated as possible. Otherwise, it's a light show in
those
there.
are the cages that I just put a piece of paper on top with tape on top, and it's just like it defies the whole
Yeah,
purpose of having cages you can see right into, right? Because I'm tired of her just seeing her
yeah,
face getting destroyed in the window. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I got that. Just that male Kentucky is psychotic. Like he would be very good to use as a practice venomous snake because he does the full
Mhm.
reverse. Like you go to grab him or something, he starts like the
Oh my
real
gosh, that's the
reverse, and
most
then
annoying
goes
part
and then
about keeping
spazzes out and
Pituophis.
does a. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the bull snakes in particular, it's just like they just hit that reverse and they don't stop. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop doing what you're doing. Like this is insane. They'll
Yeah, that
fall on the
was.
floor. Like they'll
Oh
fall out,
yeah,
they'll just drop. They don't care at
yeah.
all.
Reverse straight out the
Ah,
tub,
yeah,
off the ledge, boom.
it's pretty funny.
So I know we didn't want to go too much into venomous today, but I'll ask just one question. How is it that you can train your body to work differently with venomous and non-venomous? Because my habits are so instilled in me. I have zero issues
Mm,
reaching with hands. I have zero issues reaching into a cage,
yeah,
picking up poop. I'm like, ah, he's far enough, right? And I can guarantee you're probably doing that in scrub cages and colubrid cages and all that, right? But then
yeah,
you
sure.
don't do it with your venomous. How is your like just like that's just
Yeah,
an automation? How are you able to completely make your brain separate from that? I feel like that's just an error
yeah,
waiting to happen. No, to keep both. Uh,
sure. So I guess a couple things. One is, from the time I was pretty young, I always knew that I wanted to do venomous at some point. Whether or not I'll do it forever, I'm really not 100% sure. But it was something that like I knew I had to experience it. So from the time I was probably 13 years old, I was practicing using a hook to open cages, open tubs, take animals out, etc. Where I'm like, I just want to be so confident with a snake hook that when it comes time to learning venomous, the learning curve won't be nearly as steep, because that's the most important part, is being comfortable with the snake hook. I mean, they're all just snakes at the end of the day. There's not like venomous act differently. Rattlesnakes act like rattlesnakes, but like some non-venomous snakes act just like them. Um, so I guess that's part of it, which is like the kind of habits that you need for working venomous were just things that I kind of drilled in to my keeping routine really early on for that reason. And then also I have my venomous rooms. So when I'm in there, no snakes in there aren't venomous. So I know what I'm doing in that space. I think that helps me out big time. Where it's just like once I'm in there, that's what this is. And I only use tools. I don't like if my hand gets like if I'm reaching with my tongs to like the back of the cage, like pick up poop or something like that. It's like my hand's like there's like this invisible barrier at the entry of the cage. Like, watch out! Like, what are you doing? Like, why? Even if a snake isn't in the enclosure, like if I remove the animal, I feel so weird reaching in to grab a branch or a water bowl or something in a venomous cage that I know is empty 100%. Um, so yeah, I just think like I've just done it the same way routinely the whole time, and it's just kind of second nature. Like I don't really think about it. It's just like, all right, I have my clean tongs and my dirty tongs. I have my hook. Let's go. Let's take care of these snakes. But I think yeah, if this room was rack of scrub pythons, rack of colubrids, viper cages, I think that would, I don't know, I wouldn't like that quite as much. I like having them just in their area where I walk in there, it's only venomous. I come out here, it's all
Yeah,
non-venomous.
I could see that. I've worked with venomous for about 10 years, and I never did anything, dangerous. So I was only like considering the less dangerous ones, like I don't know, like
Yeah.
copperheads and things like that. The ones that you probably won't die, but and I did it for a little while, and I found it tough.
Right.
And the little reptile zoo that I worked out of, it was all mixed, right? You'd have a copperhead. It was the North
Yeah.
Americans. You'd have a copperhead, and beside the
Yep.
copperhead, you'd have indigos, and beside the indigos, you'd have a king snake, and it was going through all the cages and all
Right.
that. So for me, I've never had it the way you were talking about, but I can definitely see how
Yeah.
like that would have its advantage. I kind of keep my cages in like babies, yearlings, and then the older just purposely in my head because I'm like I do always
Yeah.
the young ones, the older and older and older, and to me that's a way of doing it to try to prevent spreading diseases if there was any. So,
Oh,
but in your case,
absolutely.
it's kind of like the same idea as how you would be cleaning or how you would be changing your habits. Anyway, I think it's really cool. And for
Mm.
the few people listening, the reason I don't want to go too much into venomous, I think it'd be really cool to do a full show just venomous in the future
Yeah.
if you're up to it.
100%. Yeah. I'm totally
Cool.
down for that
Yeah,
as well.
the just the way you keep your venomous in that room, like all the locality rattlesnakes and all that, like it's super neat. Like it almost makes you think like, well, I could keep gray bandy king snakes like the same way in like a
Yeah.
similar
Absolutely.
room because they're in a similar habitat and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it just
Very
makes you
cool.
think, well, you could utilize this whole way of keeping for like non venomous species and get the
Oh
most out
yeah.
of keeping those species, even
100%.
if most people would be like, oh, well, you can just keep it in a 32 quart tub or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with these rattlesnakes, you really can't be successful with them in rack systems. Just the way that they bask, they're keeping them on heat tape. The biology of that snake just has no idea what that is. Why is the warmth coming from underneath me? Um, and just yeah, with the limited basking period, and it's very interesting. One of my favorite parts about it is just the room itself, the different climate, the way that it shifts throughout the day. Setting up the enclosures, like I'll just walk through, just take a look at everybody, and like that alone is probably the most gratifying part of the process. Is just kind of having this like little exhibit hall in my house. That's probably the coolest part with all these snakes that look relatively similar to one another, but are massively different when you get into the minutia.
Oh yeah, even just each locality, and some of the females, I know of some of them
Yeah.
have a different color than the
Hmm.
males and whatnot.
Definitely. Yeah,
Have you?
absolutely.
I think yeah. I think we can easily divulge into 2 hours of just talking about that. Maybe
Yeah,
pivot
for sure.
back to the Pituophis a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you maybe give us a little short story on the Kentuckys and the pair you have, and maybe anything that you know about them, kind of thing?
Yeah. So the female, I don't have as much to tell you about her, other than I know that she's unrelated to my male. A friend of mine got a group of them as like a deal, like bought out someone's collection, and the plan was to get females from that clutch. It was a female heavy clutch, and then at the Dallas NARBC last fall, uh, Craig Trumbauer had a table set up where he had some of Bob Ashley's animals, and he had two male Kentucky Pines from Bob, and essentially talking to Craig confirmed these are definitely not related, and so my friend and I both got a male from Bob's stock, and then a female from this other stock, and he got more animals as well, but I just have a pair of them, so that's my pair, and we'll see. That's definitely one of the projects that once like they get up to size and get going, like I'll probably hold back a decent amount of them on like a routine basis and try to put together a group just because they're such important animals, and also there's some of my favorites. But with the Pituophis, kind of my ideal setup is like a bunch of different pairs of different pits instead of like very focused on this locality or these morphs or whatever it may be. I like having the pit rainbow, so to speak. But the Kentuckys are, if there was one that I would have a larger volume of compared to the rest, is probably the Kentuckys.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely need to probably import another male at least. I believe mine are probably from the same original stock as the one female I have is from Nimmo, who got his adult pair around the same time Trumbauer got his adult pair from Phil
Okay.
Peak and that. And then the other male I got, he was produced in Canada and was imported probably the same year. Well, his parents were imported from the same year as well, from the same. I think Madison Arvin was the one that had produced all those animals, I
Okay.
believe. And then they were distributed. I don't know if it was multiple clutches or not. So for all I know, mine could be actually pretty related. So I definitely want to get a hold of some of those outcrossed ones that
Yeah.
Craig was able to create last year with the that other animal that Phil Peak sent down that was from a different locality.
Yeah. It would be really cool to add an animal from Craig stock as well, or a pair or something like that. Yeah. They're just, I mean, I feel like for one, not a lot of people even know that they exist in the first place. And I bet a decent amount of people think that they're Louisiana pines as well. Um, so, but then to know, to like learn some of the story of these animals, how like they, you won't find them. Like they essentially don't exist in the wild
Oh
anymore.
yeah,
Um, and
you listened to that Phil Peak episode on Colubrid and Colubroid?
no, I need to
Oh, you
go
got
back.
it. It's the whole
This is this,
story.
this
It's so good.
yeah,
It's I think I've sent you that was it the comment section that Phil typed out. Like I probably sent it to
mm,
you like last
yeah.
year or something.
Now that
The
you
whole write out. He
right,
basically tells a whole story on the podcast, and it's a great
okay.
summary of everything that's kind of going on.
Well, I'll have to listen to that. Yeah, a lot of what I learned about it was just from talking to Craig, and him give me some of the backstory. But I feel like once you actually see the animals in person, and or even see like pictures of some of the bigger ones, because when they're smaller, they look very similar to other northern pine snakes. I bet like really young Kentucky pines to the untrained eye could look like a muddy ocean county. Um, so, I think the same exists with a lot of the Pituophis genus, where the babies don't look like a whole lot compared to older animals. Um, I think man, I wish I remember the vendor, but at multiple Tinley Park shows, there was a vendor who brought their adult Mexican pines to the show as like a display only, but right next to all the babies. It's where it's like people look at those snakes like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. What is that? And they're like, it's those. They're like, what? Those gray brown little worms turn into that? I know, same thing with carpet pythons. I think that's one of the issues that has kind of plagued carpets for a long time. Um, and but just once there's a little bit more like education out there about the fact that they go through that process, if more people, I think they're becoming more, there's a little more notoriety to it. I think a big factor with that is, that is the cover photo for the Pituophis book that's coming out. Is that adult? I think it's adult male Kentucky pine snake. Like, you can't, if you're a snake fan, you look at that snake and you're not excited, you're not really a snake person. I hate to say that, but like if you see that picture of Craig's big Kentucky pine and you're not like at least somewhat like, what, like, I need to learn more about it, I don't know if you're an actual snake person. So, but
Oh yeah, they are huge. They are actually talking
yeah,
to that Phil Peak episode. He must he was telling how like the wild animals they seem to get 7 or 8 feet, which is like very interesting.
yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, to have one that's that large would be an absolute dream.
I'm gonna try to pull up a couple
I was
pictures of
gonna say
my
I
babies from
literally
last
was
year.
just googling what they looked like. I was just curious now. See, to an untrained eye like me, to me that just looks like a differently colored bull snake. But I
Yeah,
might be wrong. But I'm looking at that and I'm like, the head doesn't look sim.
Their head does have a
That's
different shape to it. Like they're almost more
yeah, it's a
stocky.
little bit off,
Like
but
yeah,
compared to another pine snake kind of thing, it's just a slightly less stocky. Well, no, their body is stocky. Like they're very stocky snakes compared to even ocean
are
counties and
they?
that.
yeah.
Obviously, they're egg layers. How many eggs do they have? And just by curiosity, how do you brumate them? And I'm assuming you do, right?
Uh, I just brumated them the same way that I brumated the other stuff. So they went in the garage for 2 to 3 months. It ranged from it got in down into the 40s, high 40s, and mostly in the 50s for that time period. And then I brought them up beginning of February. Started pairing them right away, even though I don't think mine don't seem to take till probably a couple months, probably like a month or two in. You notice them starting to lock up. First year I didn't even see them lock, and I got 7 perfect eggs. This year I got 9. So and they're both times perfect. She went when she was 3, so I probably might have pushed her a little bit with
Okay.
that. But they were all perfect, all healthy. She was good, and she went again this year and had 9, which seems to be, well. Actually, I think Rob Nemo had like 12 or 13 one of his second or third
From a
years.
Kentucky.
Yeah, like they seem to, like as
Wow.
they get
Okay.
bigger, right? Like eventually, like if it is a 7 or 8 foot animal, like I'm assuming they can
Yeah.
probably have like, these are
Sure.
not small eggs. Like these
They're
are
giant eggs, right? Yeah.
they're huge. Like when they're gravid, you're like they're gravid. It's not like they're hiding
Yeah.
anything.
How big was your female when she was 3?
I think she was like 5.5 feet. So like it
Okay.
was like borderline, but then as soon as she like had
Yeah.
the eggs, it was like okay, she's big enough. But it was like kind of like just
Yeah.
in time. I should have
Like,
waited another year because now
would a
she's
would a medium rat have like left a good lump in her at that? I'm trying to get a
not
gauge
a
of how.
good lump. Like
Okay, like she
like
could handle a
a
medium
large
lump.
rat would have left a lump.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
like
I mean
yeah,
that's a pretty substantial snake for sure.
yeah. I guess
That's
just hearing Craig's 7 foot story, it's like, eh.
sure.
But then I've also seen my buddies leucistics and blacks, and I'm like, well, she's bigger than that, and his
Yeah.
animals are like 7 8 years old, so it's like, okay, so I guess I am on the right track.
Yeah. I mean, because at least in my limited experience, like with my Kankakee and my Janai, like I bred the females at 3 years old, and they had an okay clutch. I guess I'll see this year with the Kankakees, but with the Janai, every subsequent clutch just kept getting better and better, and it didn't seem like, yeah, it's amazing, but it didn't seem like that first year was a detriment to her. like maybe how like if you push a python or a boa to breed too young, you might kind of stunt their reproductive potential going forward. But I'm not sure. Like, do you think with pits it would be similar, or do you think that they can bounce that first smaller clutch is just kind of maybe part of their process?
She bounced back pretty well. Like, I just kept feeding her like the once a week afterwards, and she'll take, like, I obviously start off a little slower, but then they don't seem to double clutch, so I wasn't really worried about that.
Yeah.
Just pounded her once every week.
Okay.
There's a few times where I gave her like 2 weeks between meals just to make sure she wasn't eating too much,
Yeah.
because they do hold weight once they get weight.
Sure.
So yeah, it was just like a medium rat or a couple quail, like switch it up a bit. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Got
no,
it.
they she bounced back. She was looking great in the spring. Paired her again. Obviously, after she laid this last clutch, she looked deflated, but then she, like, other than like, obviously she's gonna look deflated when they have eggs this
Or and
big.
when the clutch size increases the way that it did.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, I haven't seen too many, like, all out of all the babies I hatched out last year. They all looked good except for like the one male I held back. Like, I noticed after like 6 months that it had like maybe like the ever little kink on the end of it, just like once, like it was
Mm,
just like almost as if maybe it wasn't born like that because I didn't catch it until then.
sure.
But
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to breed that male, so I'm going to hold back a different male this time.
Okay.
But
Makes
every
sense.
I didn't notice anything else with any of the babies. So yeah, no, like it's hard to tell with them because I've definitely heard
Yeah.
from other people that you could get some inbreeding stuff going on. I think I heard that from
Yeah.
you as well.
That's what
Um,
Craig told me. He said that like sometimes they have like really stumpy tails, males or females, I think, and that he's like those are the ones that he thinks should be kind of removed from the bloodlines, um, which would make a lot of sense. That they would already be reaching a point where some of the signs of inbreeding depression would be more obvious.
it might even be the outcrossing almost, right? Like, when because they're from they're originally collected from 2 to 3 different localities depending on the animals you have.
Hmm.
And maybe just that crossing of already inbred genes that maybe were fine in their own pockets, then get
Hmm.
crossed, and then I think Nick Mutton's talked about it a little bit, maybe with the that may be causing some defects, but I don't
I
know.
find it
That
I
would
find it
be something to look
always
into.
interesting when people talk about inbreeding because we can probably name about like 20 different species where there was only like 2 or 3 or 4 animals collected ever, and the entire captive industry is based on those 4 animals, right? And there's zero issues, right? So it
Yeah.
makes me often wonder is if it's purely we had the right 4 animals and they were perfectly fine and we never got anything wrong from it when compared to other animals. You inbreed them a couple of times and then you have issues and then you need to move it on. Like if you take, I don't know, rough scale pythons, there was what, 4 or 5 animals, and there are
Something like that.
I'd say 100 thousands of rough scale pythons probably in the industry now, and they're all from those 4 snakes, maybe 5 snakes.
But I mean, but would you think that? Do you think rough scales have been around long enough for some of that to happen?
In captivity or
Because
in the wild?
I mean, what in captivity? Where I mean, how
Hasn't
many
been
how many
that.
generations inbred at this point can rough scale pythons even really
There's
be?
It was
Because
probably
they didn't
like
really show up in the
early two
U.S. much.
there's
thousands,
got to be at
right?
least F
And
four, F5, F6 easily.
Probably in Australia, but probably not here though,
Uh,
right? Because I feel like the first ones weren't really bred until like the early 2010s because they
yeah,
didn't really
but they were
become
probably already
available
second gen,
widespread.
you're at least
maybe.
at
It's
Yeah,
F4,
hard to
if not
say.
F5, and even then
yeah,
that would be
yeah,
brother to
sure.
sister to brother to mother and continuously, right? So
Yeah, I know 100%. Like kind of, take those compared to a carpet python that's been around for a lot longer. Like how many more generations inbred may some like locality specific carpet be than a rough scale python? I
no,
don't
fair
know. This
enough.
this is speculation. Um, I just my only experience with that was with the inland carpets that I bred that were a sibling pair, and you know it's hard to pinpoint where issues came from, but the babies were like really difficult, and I lost a couple of them. Where I'm like, I haven't had this with other python species, but maybe it was
I
a
have two
gestation problem or an
completely
expansion problem.
unrelated inlands. One's Schofield, one's Mog, and the 11 babies that
Mhm.
I've had right now are not one of them's eating, and they're about 5 weeks old. So it's not just you.
Yeah.
I think they just. I'm struggling like
Oh
hell,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
can tell you it's not inbreeding in my case. So
yeah.
no, I'm
Fair
just
enough.
wondering. I was listening to you
Yeah,
guys talking about the Kentucky, and I'm like, if you can't get the blood, I feel like usually things are pretty good, but then you guys started talking about tail issues, right? And as soon as you start, it tends to be tail issues or it tends to be eye issues that I feel like we always associate with the inbreeding like a
sure.
coefficient
Yeah,
problems. So, is there any eye
yeah.
problems with them? No, no,
Not
Okay,
that I
what
just
believe
tail,
so.
shorter tail,
Yeah.
or king tails.
Yeah, like you can tell. I think I've seen some pictures where it just like looks like the tails, like it just looks like they're missing like a chunk of scales, and like the tail's just kind of smaller
Because
almost.
see, when I hear that and you're telling, well, you don't breed the one with the short tails, you breed their brother that has a nice tail. In my opinion, the brother's as screwed up as the other one. Because if those genes have been passed down, the brother's probably as inbred and has probably many of the same genes as the other. But that's just where my brain goes.
I guess it'd be curious to do like an experiment of, take siblings from that clutch that have like a pair of siblings with a good tail and pair of siblings with a stub tail, see what
Yeah,
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
That'd be the way to figure that one out. I mean, I think this the same thing or a similar kind of thing exists in Eastern indigos with like the stubby indigo
Oh
kind of
yeah, yeah.
concept. Yeah, my first job back in Chicago, we had an adult Eastern indigo that was like not even 3 feet long. It was crazy. It was absolutely insane. Like full size head, little tiny stubby indigo snake, and with like full scalation that was just like compressed.
it's a true
So
dwarf.
weird. But yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Full on. So yeah, I'd be curious if it's a similar kind of concept. But yeah, I mean, Michael, you know better than me. Do you think the Kentuckys have even really been bred for long enough where we could have definitive opinions on that?
Not really. Like who knows? Maybe it's some incubation temperature thing with some of the issues, but I don't know. I think the other thing is maybe we're just hoping that we can eventually get some more fresh blood. But like I said earlier, maybe that's an issue is putting in too many new genes into some localities that are have been separated for at least maybe a couple hundred years. It's hard to say because Kentucky
Yeah.
pines in let's say 100 years ago were not maybe widespread, but there was definitely some big
Yeah, but 100
populations.
years isn't
And
enough to
then
cause differentiation genetically. Like, it's not even like you talk about islands that have been separated, like West Papuan or the PNG have been separated for what, 40,000? I don't know. I'd have to listen to, I'd have to go check, but you're talking about thousands, a couple
A lot more than
thousand
100.
years, right? Like either between 10 and
Yeah.
40,000. And most of the animals on those islands are very close genetically to the ones on Australia. And you're talking about, so a few hundred years, I don't see that as being a genetic
yeah,
issue whatsoever.
but the issue might also be that they're like those island species and even like roughies who are basically an island species. They've had thousands of years to work those defects out, and obviously the defective ones either don't make it, kind of thing. Well, with the Kentuckies, maybe certain defective. Obviously, they're still a living animal. Um, they haven't had the means to kind of funnel themselves into all healthy animals necessarily. But yeah, that makes me think that maybe it shouldn't be an issue because they kind of all probably were at least in broader populations, maybe still separated, but still like broader populations than they are currently. As now they find one animal every like year or two, maybe kind of thing, and you're actually still allowed to collect them, which is hilarious for how endangered they are because they're
Really?
yeah. Phil Peak's still talking that he's still looking to maybe collect some more
Oh
because they're
wow, I
not.
didn't know. Yeah. I
It's
kind of
still as
figured
if
that.
they were a rat snake in Kentucky. You can collect like up to 4 or 5 of them and keep them.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's
not that you're ever gonna get that many, but
sure.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Interesting. Hmm. It's all
Yeah, I think
fascinating.
I think he's working. Yeah, I don't want to spoil that podcast because it's really good. But yeah, no, there's definitely some cool stuff in there.
I wonder if any like kind of molecular sequencing could tell us one way or another which way that trend would go with inbreeding versus outbreeding. I feel like there's so much emphasis in the hobby on outcross, 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 but who's to say that two deleterious genes could hit each other and just wreak havoc on the that lineage? I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely have a lot of jarred animals because when they made like Mammoth Cave National Park, they plowed a whole road through there, and that was
Mm,
in the 1930s, and there was Kentucky's all over there because the forest itself, it's kind of like Massasaugas, where Massasauga populations in the Northeast have plummeted due to not as much burning and not as much kind of because they not that they need the same habitat, but like Massasaugas like their crayfish burrow habitat and like marshlands kind of thing. So they need the open. They need the sky to be open. They can't have trees and
mm,
everything all over top. While the Kentuckies need the openness and the pine forests
yeah,
and kind of sandhill ish, which is like why Kentucky's already like a hard spot because there's not much of that there. And then
sure.
when fires don't commonly go through there anymore because we stop that from happening, it decreases their habitat so much on top of
Hmm.
civilization. You kind of it really hinders those populations. I think
Yeah,
is yeah.
sure.
I don't know. Going back to
Makes
the
sense.
inbreeding, I feel like the hobby inbreeds more than you can imagine. Like, think of how many people go at the show and they
Oh,
buy
sure.
a pair, right? You buy a pair from this guy, you buy a pair. You're buying brothers and sisters 99% of the time. You know what I mean? And everybody
Yeah.
does it. And I don't try to stop people from doing it because you know what? Like, I feel like it's 99% of the time, it's not an issue. Like, with almost any reptiles, it tends to be like we tend to have very little issues from it. Like if you look at mammals, mammals purposefully have ways of preventing the young from breeding back to the adults. But with reptiles, there's none of that. Like none at all. There's nothing
Mm,
stopping from your young growing up to breeding back to the adults in the wild. So I feel like if it was an issue in the wild, it would have cleaned itself out of it. It would have found a way to prevent it from happening.
sure.
So, and in captivity, we're no better. Like we, if anything, we
Yeah.
encourage inbreeding. The way that people sell their animals, the way that you go to shows and oh, you want a pair? Of course, here have two. No, it's not like only buy my male. You can go buy the female at that table. You never see somebody say that, right? Well, you might, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Like overall, like
Sure.
we're
Yeah. I mean, certain people.
anyway. Just a thought.
Well, and I've had similar thought processes based on like some of the herping I've done for some of these rattlesnakes, where you find a gravid female, you see where she's at, and it's like, okay, she's going to drop her litter. These babies are probably not going to go very far for the entirety of their lives, just based on the this is where the habitat is, and like, okay, over here, nope, over here, nope, and they're not going to like traverse these canyons to new canyons. Like they're obviously going to stay put where they are here. It's perfect. The likelihood of them running into a sibling in 4 years compared to an unrelated animal in 4 years, it's probably much more likely for that to be a sibling if you're a snake that's kind of in a very isolated canyon. Um, I don't know. I've thought about that as well. Of like, okay, we're doing all this outcrossing, but in the wild, it's probably these animals are probably much more likely to run into something that's related to them. Even a mainland, take insular populations out of it altogether. Like you're probably much more likely to run into a brother or sister once you're mature than you are just some other random bloodline of your same species in that area. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah,
It's an interesting thought.
it's definitely odd. Like even in the West Indian boas, you got like I have the
Sure.
Strigolatus, and they like the Nassau boas I have the that locality of Strigolatus. That those animals came in on from one animal that Tom Crutchfield was able to get. I think 15, maybe 17 years ago as like rabid female from
Hmm.
some guy. So who knows how legal that might be, but she produced probably 20, 25 babies out of that litter. So who knows how many fathers fathered that litter, or it could just be one. Now all
Yeah.
the animals now descendant from there are all brothers and sisters being bred to each other. And now I
Yeah.
have a brother and sister from Jeff Murray's clutch or litter,
Okay.
and another. And Cody Joe also has this siblings to mine, and
Okay.
we've had my buddy who had mine before me. He couldn't get them to breed at all. Actually, when I got them, she had a bunch of slugs like a month later. Didn't even know she was
Hmm.
gravid.
Oh
And
wow.
Cody Joe has had worse luck. They just, as I learned when I tried to pair mine this year, they just ran from each other. They both got, like, they knew they were really keyed in on each other, but they just ran from each other. So maybe that's just how this. It sounds like might be just how the species is, but
Interesting.
maybe it's the inbreeding. Like, maybe they just know their brother and sister, and that they're like,
Maybe they're brother and
maybe they're
brother.
just that less inclined. No, well, mine for sure aren't. She had slugs, but I
That's
guess
Sister and sister.
I get, although maybe, but I guess I'll find out maybe in the fall. Hopefully, I just ran her through my hands today, and there's definitely something in there. Like, she is
okay.
loaded with something because she's been looking fat the last month for sure. And I did pair them, and then they did kind of chill out. Like, I started leaving them in for a week or two at a time, and then I went away and I was working a lot. I was trying to leave them alone, and they seemed to kind of not. I never saw them even cuddling together, but maybe they could have locked up when I was away at work or something like that.
Hmm.
There's pictures of them locked up too. My buddy has pictures from like 5 years ago of them locking
There
up
you
in a
go.
bin.
But think about it.
But
You're
yeah,
saying
it's
like if they would know if they're brother and sister. I think it's bullshit. I don't think they would know that at all. Like, you separate a snake for 3 days, for a week, you put them back together. It's like, who's this guy, right? You can see it in the way they're acting, right? How would a snake know which one's her brother or sister, especially when they've been separated? I don't know. I just don't see it. I think that's putting human emotions to an animal, or I don't know. I don't think it's possible, but
hard to say. I think it's maybe fair. It would maybe be like a pheromone thing, possibly, right? They do have their own sensory things that
it's
we
possible,
don't know
but
about
I
either.
don't see it.
But yeah, it's
Hmm.
hard to see, hard to say.
Yeah, and there could be just differences between species or genuses of snakes where one, the process with one of them is totally different than the next. You know, I feel like probably generalizing it could probably work for the most part, but who knows? I sure don't know.
Yeah, for sure. On the West Indian boa topic, have you ever thought about keeping maybe some West Indians just to have like one side project as somebody just to keep one thing going, kind of thing?
Yeah, I used to work with Dominican red mountain boas at my old job in Chicago, and this is probably a terrible reason to not have pursued a genus, but the worst bite I've ever taken was from a Dominican red mountain boa. And it sucked. It was a male. He wasn't even that big. He was probably like 4 feet, but he womaned me, to use that verb again, and he got me on my thumb, and I got this immediate nerve pain that I had never felt before or since, where like my body was screaming like, "Get it off! Get it off! Get it off!" And it hurt so bad. Oh my god, I've never experienced that kind of pain before or after. But I mean, I really I appreciate those animals and the story behind them very much. So I just know that I wouldn't be able to dedicate what other people like, like Jeff Murray, who you brought up, have to them. So I've had a few conversations on the podcast about some West Indian boas. But I mean, never say never. Could definitely eventually, but probably for the immediate future, not in my plans, but not because I'm not interested in those animals, just because I know that I wouldn't have the ability to give them what they probably would need.
Yeah, even just the babies are definitely a lot more work with the anoles and the scenting and whatnot.
Sure.
They
Yeah,
def
I'm not a
lack
fan of
a
any.
profit off of it too, but that's not why you'd
Yeah,
probably keep them anyways.
sure. Yeah, I just anything that doesn't want to start on a readily available feeder. Like, that's why I had a few Pituophis, and I never pursued those. You know, they're absolutely amazing, and for the types of colubrids that I'm into, they fit the bill. But when I was talking to somebody who routinely was producing the Carinata, and he's like, nothing works. You just hope they eventually decide that they want to eat something, and maybe that takes a year, maybe they die. It's like, and then maybe the adults eat each other. You don't really know. Like, you know what? I am not gonna do that. I love the Mexican pine snakes. Like, set them all up, put fuzzy in there, and they're all gone the next day.
Oh
Next week,
yeah,
put a frozen thawed fuzzy in there. They're all gone. I'm like, this is
oh
so
yeah.
great.
Those Kentuckies last year, I think I threw in like a hopper because they were so big. It was like threw in frozen hoppers. I think
Yep.
6 of the 7 just took first night,
Yeah.
drop fed, boom, done.
Yep. Yeah, that's like with the scrubs. Typically, like the first round of feeding, like a few of them will take. The next round, a few more will take, and some clutches there's one or two that want quail. Keep them on quail until they get off. Every now and then, there's some that I got to force feed, but generally speaking, not the hardest. The Spilotes so far have been easy, on the easier side. It seems like with them, the hardest proposition has been transitioning off of live to any sort of pre-killed prey. I mean, you imagine that's a very movement-based snake, but also a very nervous one where they don't. Generally, I haven't found they respond well to tongue feeding until they're a good bit older. Even once they're routinely eating, they prefer drop feeding until they're like really, really confident where they are. Um, but yeah, like the dead
So you didn't
fuzzies.
try the bird snake method of hitting them in the face until they finally take it?
Well, so I haven't, and maybe they're so nervous in hand that, like, I did raise a bird snake that way. Once I had the snake gripped up properly the way I was showed, they kind of just sat there. Where with the Spilotes, like, you if you put pressure on it, a few inches down the body, that snake is gonna go, oh fuck, get me out of here! Like, it's gonna start flailing and probably start biting you. But maybe not. I don't know. I haven't tried it, but at least for me, if they're taking live fuzzies or live button quail or whatever, it's like, I'd much rather do that than put you in my hand and walk around my house and go up and down my stairs while you're eating and stuff like that. Um, the way that the bird snake people have to do it. So I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
still how they all do it, but
It seems like that would be like less. It'd probably uptake those nutrients better too, right? Like it's like when you're assist feeding stuff that doesn't really want to take it, they don't uptake those nutrients, so it's not as
yeah,
beneficial, anyways.
yeah, for sure. No,
Yeah, those
definitely.
bird snakes do, even from Jason's video, right? Like you can tell that they just look chill, right? And I
Yeah,
can probably, I think I can
yeah,
picture those Spilotes just kind of flipping out in your hand, even if
yeah.
you did
They're
have a, yeah,
they're very different. Yeah, I used to have a Pacillonotus, and then what now I know to be Sex carinatus, previously Polylepis, was sold as a Pacillonotus. But yeah, very like the taxonomic change of Sustes to Spilotes and Phyronax definitely was correct. Those animals are nothing like each other. Um, they have some lifestyle similarities, some prey preference similarities, nest rating, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as their movement patterns, their behaviors, they're nothing alike, in my experience, at least. So,
yeah,
and then obviously the Phryronax species are a lot smaller than the Spilotes species.
for sure. Have you? So obviously, you're a young keeper like me. You're
Mhm.
only like a year older than I am. How have you? Obviously, and you've also had like you were able to use your teens and like really early 20s to form how you're working with stuff now. What has been some of your biggest, maybe not mistakes, but what's the biggest thing you've learned so far in keeping reptiles?
Um, that's a very loaded question. I think honestly, if there's one thing, it's just like don't, I guess maybe this is the most important thing. Don't take yourself too seriously. Um, I, at least from both the standpoint of as a keeper and as a member of the community, uh, no one is more hated on than someone who's too stuck up on a Facebook forum or whatever. Or like someone who thinks they know what they're doing and they're so rigid on like my identity is I know how to breed this species. When new information presents itself, they don't want to come close to that because it like would screw up their entire worldview of who they are. I mean, I've like been around people like that. I'm like, these are just snakes. Why are you taking yourself so damn seriously? Like, calm down and enjoy it. So I guess yeah, getting out of your own way is probably the most important aspect. But then from like a more like functional keeping standpoint, I guess keeping just being curious, not closing off that curiosity, but then also not being afraid to admit when you've entered a project that doesn't really suit you. Um, you know, not feeling like just because I bought these animals, I need to keep them forever or whatever. Get them into the hands of people who will actually prioritize them the way you're prioritizing whatever your thing is. But then, I think everyone hopefully has their Noah's Ark phase. I'm definitely past my Noah's Ark phase, and I think now the next evolution is going to be streamlining a little bit and really focusing on a few projects, but kind of always being open to some new idea, interesting me, some new direction, some whatever it may be. But yeah, not take yourself too seriously. Always be curious, but then if you found something to focus on, focus on it.
I love you.
Yeah, I feel like
Uh,
I feel like I'm still in my Noah's Ark phase to an extent,
Sure.
and it's
Yeah.
hard to. But then I don't, or it gets weird. Like now, I think still in it, but like at hopefully closer to the end of it.
I was gonna say
But
Noah's.
like,
Sorry, go ahead, man. I thought you were dead.
yeah, it's just hard to explain, right? Like how you're like, well, like I like all this stuff. I'm still morphing some things, and I feel like I could morph things, but I like to
Yeah.
keep my collection at a certain size.
Sure.
And then like you hear, like I wish I could keep a Gurnia, and I wish I could keep like different carpet pythons and stuff. But then like you definitely feels like I start to focus a bit, and then but then like I just went and got Angolan. I'm gonna get Angolan pythons in a couple
Nice.
weeks to finally try them out because they've been picking away at me for multiple years. So
Yeah.
it's hard to, I guess, get through that. But like you said, I guess as long as I'm kind of testing things, but like really sure I want to test it instead of
Yeah.
just, oh, I see that I need to buy it, and then a month later, like I don't really want to keep this anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of like an ethical approach to somewhat impulse buying. Like if you can keep yourself in check to some certain degree and keep the animals as the priority, I don't see much of a problem of I have species now that I'm like, oh, I tried these, I like them a lot, but I don't think they're going to be a long term fixture for me. So I think it's all about evolving. So my collection has been more than twice the size that it is now, and I was so miserable. Like it wasn't fun anymore. It was and even now I think my collection is way too large. So that's kind of for me the next thing is like finding where that collection size is, because I've been to some friends' places where they like are really focused on one or two things, and they like everything is so dialed in, clean, and I'm just like, I wonder if this would be nicer to have this very like concise, functional group. I don't know. I've never had that, so um, I'm still figuring it out.
That's what I was gonna say earlier about what is a Noah's phase. To me, a Noah's phase is anything over like 30 species. To me, that was my big Noah's phase. Now I'm down to about 5, 6, 7 species maybe. When I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
your non-Noah's phase now is probably over 30 species, but before was in the 200, right? So it all depends on
I,
what
I
what is a Noah's species according to me, or maybe according to you.
I think
Yeah,
I'm at
exactly.
40 right now. So, but then a lot of them fall into kind of certain distinctions where like 13 of them are different montane rattlesnakes that are essentially the same thing, just in a little bit of a different form, and then like different species of like Pituophis. Um, you know, but still, I agree. I'm definitely I'm a little spread thin, a little bit too Noah's Arky
It's if
still.
it works for you, right? Like for everybody's
Yeah,
got
yeah,
their different
absolutely.
thing that works. Like for me initially it was only Australia. Now it's Australia, maybe a little bit off to Indonesia, but it's still all inside that little thing. I had Angolan pythons, and it sounds like the weirdest thing, but one thing that bothered me is was the only animal that didn't fit the location where everything came from. It was literally the only one. And I'm
Mm,
like, there was a lot of other things, but that was one of the things that did bother me. I'm like, it doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. Although it bred and did everything perfectly in my room, but I was like,
yeah,
it's not really my. It's not in my little niche area. So,
sure. Yeah, 100%.
all right,
Yeah.
Michael, you got anything more you want to hit up, or you want to do a closing question?
I think my questions can probably be saved for the next time we have Steven on. Or actually, one. Let's do one more. Did you have a final question you
Okay.
wanted to
How
ask
about one
Dominic?
quick
Or
one? If you could breed any scrub python and finally have success, which one would it be? Yeah.
Moluccans at this point. That's the one that's evaded me so far. That yeah, like I feel like the day that I finally see a baby Moluccan scrub crawl out of the egg, I'll just like collapse to the floor crying. Like they've put me through the ringer. So, but yeah, I
Fair
think I would
enough.
say Moluccans.
slap that $10,000 price tag on it.
Not even, I'd probably keep them
No.
all, honestly. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to be in a position where I'm worried if I'm not going to have these again. You guys are all staying forever. So,
Yeah. As I think Don Patterson always says, your best breeding stock is the stuff that you produce.
yeah, well, and that's something that is going to be fun for me this year with my scrub pythons. Is this going to be the first year that like I'm really breeding stuff that I've produced? Um, with four females and then a decent lineup of some younger males. So we'll see. We'll see. That's like the thing I'm most excited about is just to see
It's
how
kind
they
of cool when you
produce.
get to even further than that. Like in some of the jungles I have, I think I'm on F4 from my stock. Like, and it's pretty cool
That's
when you
awesome.
get to that point where you're like, okay, he's the baby of that, and grandmother and great great grandmother, and they're all still in the room, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait for that
It'll
day
get
for
there with
sure.
scrubs eventually.
Yeah, and I'm willing to wait. I'm not in a rush.
Yeah, the market with them is definitely still kind of untapped, right? Because
Sure.
obviously Asia's kind of now eating up a bunch of the scrubs. Have you, like,
Yeah.
even if the U.S. market dries up a little bit, you could easily sell them over there, from what I can tell.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, prices have gone up considerably considering what they were when they were imports, for the most part. They're a lot more popular than they were as well, but they still have a ways to go, I think. Um, but yeah, I think it comes down to the locality and the species for sure. Some of the southern types that are more common, and there's in the U.S. 3, 4, 5 clutches a year at this point produced. They're not quite as in high demand, it seems, as some of the others, but be it Moluccans, Halmaheras, Tannenbars, Aru, some of the more off the beaten path localities. There's at least in my experience so far a really high demand here stateside. The Asian market has definitely taken off on scrubs significantly. I wonder how it's doing in India and the Middle East as well, because I know those two markets are really starting to become much more prominent. The only thing that I think might be a barrier to entry in some of those markets is just how cheap they can get stuff from Indonesia compared to what I'd be willing to sell it for. Um, if a keeper in Japan can import a bunch of scrubs from Jakarta and get them for the equivalent of like $300 US landed there, I'm not gonna spend $1,000 on something that I have that's the same.
Yeah, but
But
I know they're
maybe
definitely Dominic's getting ready to send out some carpets to Japan. They seem to. It might not even be the price thing with them. It's probably more the quality, honestly. Like I could see them definitely wanting something that you have, or them seeing, oh well, I like his parents, or I like the look of these animals that he's breeding. You never know,
You'd be
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
surprised.
that would
Shoot,
be.
I've
I
I've
would.
never sent pictures, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not even about what they look
I,
like.
hey, I mean, I would absolutely love to do, international business with the scrub pythons. Honestly, the first market I'm probably going to really try to break into is Canada. I've had so many Canadians reach out to me about scrub pythons, and a couple of times I've kind of attempted to make stuff work. It's fallen through for one reason or another, but that's I think probably stop number one for me with
There's no one really in
international
Canada breeding
scrub.
them, and they're not like if you
That's what
can move
everyone
green
said.
trees
Yeah.
across the border, you can move scrubs because they're going to be the same CITES. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And with dealing with applying for permits and stuff, I think the only thing that was really told to me was just there's never been an import of, I guess, on the books right now, Morelia amethystina from the U.S. to Canada. So it's a novel endeavor, but there's CITES too, and plenty of CITES two stuff. If retics can go from the U.S. to Canada, a scrub python can.
same as green trees,
So
right? It's the same
that's the
thing.
way
I
I look
wouldn't
at
see an issue.
it. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think as long as there's for sure like it's the issue with the stuff I was trying to import with the West Indians is, oh well, you don't have this many generations or whatnot. Oh, we're not going to approve the
Yeah.
papers because that
Sure.
officer wanted a bit more information. And well, they've been around in the hobby since the 80s or 90s. There's no, and people didn't keep information back
Yeah, but
that
you
long.
realize that when you do
So
that, you apply for your CITES, you just need to go to F2. And applying to F2, you just need to send a letter to a certain someone that would have had them and get them to put their signature on it. And then all of a
yeah,
sudden you
that's what they
have
did.
the next generation. And like, I'm not going to
Mm.
say too much, but it's not hard to obtain. You can prove lineage very
Sure.
easily
Yeah,
if you can read between the lines.
yeah. That was yeah, the Bahamas I was trying to get did have that, and they did send in all the information. They still like, oh well, we want a little more than that, and we didn't have any more than that. Even though the animals are like they're captive bred, nothing's left the Bahamas in
Yeah.
at least 30 years probably. So yeah, it's I guess it depends on like for sure that stuff's gonna pass easily, right? Like it like stuff comes in from Indo all the time. It's obvious, like it's like you can. I don't think it would be that hard at all. Same
Yeah. I
with
mean,
like
there's
the green
no.
trees.
Yeah, like there aren't like smuggled, commonly available legal species coming out of a country like Indonesia. Like there would be no purpose. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool, very cool. Well, Stephen, before we go any further, I want to again say a million thank you. You're a wealth of knowledge. It's freaking
Oh,
awesome having you on. Love listening to your podcast. Do you want to just maybe
thank you.
drop us a line of where people can reach you, where we could listen to you, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. So for social media, I'm on Instagram at Scrub Shepherd, Steven Kush on Facebook, and then YouTube as well. Steven Kush or at Kush Reptile. That's where I do kind of like vlog style videos. Kush Reptile Morph Market as well. And then my podcast is Kush's Corner on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, which is live every Wednesday. You can also catch the replays on either YouTube or audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Play, any of those places. So those would be
Didn't
the
realize
places
you
to
did
find me.
live. How do you find live? Real quickly.
Yeah,
Same thing or?
I like it a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's fun to have the
Yeah.
audience interaction. And honestly, like for me, the ability to just like do the show,
And
it's
you're
there.
done
I'm
with
not
it.
editing it. I'm like it's now, it's over and it's happening. The only constraint is just that like my life is essentially scheduled around Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. If I'm traveling, most of the time I'm like, I'm home on
Yeah.
Wednesday, so I'm either leaving on Thursday or I'm coming back on Tuesday. But like it's a pretty good day to have a live
Yeah.
show. I think I personally picked it because there's never any football games on Wednesday. So
I could see that. I mean, like this show we're
but
doing, and it's not airing until Sunday. This is the extra show, and now everything's always going to be 6 days in advance. So but we want to do live
yeah,
shows at some point.
yeah, they're fun. It's a different dynamic for sure.
Yeah, we
But I
don't
really
edit
enjoy it.
anything anyway. So, all right, Michael, anything you want to say before I close it out?
No, I just want to say thank you, Steven. And it's awesome to
Yeah,
see a fellow young herper that's doing a lot of good for the hobby and definitely a leader in the hobby and probably going to help lead this community into the future for hopefully years to come.
I appreciate that, and I hope I can. And yeah, the younger generation, it's we don't have quite as many of us as past generations when they were our age, but there are some really good keepers in their early mid 20s that are coming up. So yeah, there's it should be fun. I think a lot of us have a really good mindset about the industry as well. So it'll be cool to see how that changes over time and how that evolves the industry as
Yeah, you know what? It's not about age. Like you're the age of my oldest son. So just to
yeah.
give you an idea, and you know what? I look up to you when it comes to scrub and many other things. So I
Thank you.
value your opinion,
Appreciate
value
that
what
a
you have
lot.
to say, and that's why we bring you on, right? Uh,
Thank you. I
I
mean,
don't know,
it's a
of
pleasure.
course. So for Michael, if you want to reach him, Facebook, Michael Gillian. For myself, Facebook, Dominic Carbonneau, or Instagram, Dom's Reptiles. For the podcast, it would be Reptile Rejects. We are on every platform: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think the Google one, which I don't even know what the one that is, but whatever it is for the other ones, it's on there too. Give us a like, give us a follow, and everybody, thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next time on Reptile Rejects. Take care, guys.